good day wherever you are on this wonderful planet of ours. Oops. How is everyone? Robert, just give me a sec. That's the postman.
Mate, this is for...
Yeah, Lee.
Yep.
No problem. See ya.
Hey, hello, kitty. Your parcel's turned up.
Let me just shut that door.
I was waiting for a parcel to be delivered. It was Hello Kitties. So she's, I forgot to do something, didn't I? Luckily I didn't have this when he turned up. Would have thought, what the fuck is this guy? Well, got to have the humorous side. Yes, always naughty, but nice, in a nice way. I'll fondle you just, after I've had a few drinks. I won't fondle you before that. So, yes. Meat and alcohol, yeah, what a lethal combination. Yes. Anyway, yes, hello, Lukey. How are you, mate? Dave, mate. Oh, yes, happy Christmas to you, mate, as well. Ah, yes. Robbie, morning, mate. Happy Merry Christmas to you as well. Yeah, I was just saying to Robert earlier, that's Robert Wardlow, that we're on Restream, and on Restream, when YouTube connects to Restream, it wipes out all the initial stuff, because he did say, don't forget to eat your kibble 3 times a day, folks, with snacks. I will share that just for the humour. So there it was. Oops. Can we increase the size? No, I can't increase the size. Zoom. Nope. Oh well, that's as good as it get. And then I said, morning, Robert, using Restream. You'll have to repost. Yes. And he asked me, what do I mean? It gets wiped. It's what happens. He's probably gone to sleep now because he's, at his end. But yes, Restream unfortunately does wipe, and that's why I also always warn people, maybe I should put it in brackets, actually, in the title, Restream, so people know what's really coming. Yes. Are you reading a Singing Christmas Carol? No, I'm not. Go away. I'm Barbados. I don't want to scare the natives off completely, within reason, mate, within reason. I don't really have a very, let's say, a good voice in that regard. I think my mother had a much better voice, and my sisters actually acquired that skill, which I didn't. Yes. Yes, it is. Exactly. Actually, my brother just sent me a message, said me, we're all going to, he's basically just being facetious. We're all going to die and all that in Tasmania, just being joking. And I just reminded him, and I said, how to basically, when he engages with me, how to call me. And I said, Sir Omicron to you, bro. And I actually basically said, Delta peasant. Just to annoy him. It'll wind him up. It'll get him going. I just heard a beep on my phone, so it must have been him coming back with some expletive. If you can't be annoying to your brothers, who can you be? Exactly, Robert. Yes, exactly. That's how it is. Unfortunately, on Restream, it is annoying, but we can't do anything about it because, unlike StreamYard, actually, but I've run out of hours. StreamYard goes directly and picks up the actual the YouTube sort of chat box, where Restream doesn't. It actually goes and picks whatever is when it goes live. What's live? That's what it picks up, and only that. So it's annoying in that regard. Yep, it's exactly it. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about it. It's the way it is. Yes, but yes, that lovely organisation on the news feed. It will end about 2022. Yes, I know. Yes, if you haven't had a close encounter with Jabba the Hutt yet, whether you like it or not, he'll give you a big booster up your rear end. Yes, it's his Christmas present. Yes, Jabba the Hutt is a very lovely person. Yes, nice, big, squishy, likes to jab people. Yes, wonderful fellow. Yes, take him to parties, Christmas party. Bring him to your Christmas party. Are you starting to see new narrative from these dictators? Yes, they're pulling back a little, especially in Australia. Yes, apparently, yes, but not enough. That's the only problem. You know, what they've gained, they don't want to give up very easily. If you've noticed, especially the state premiers, they've had a lot of power to yield and all that, and those little pricks basically think they are gods on earth, and they don't want to give all that up. Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. Gyms and bars shut down over here again. Ah, yes. Crazy. It will never end. Yes. Yes. Ah, yes. Nothing like a bit of oh, oh, oh. Ho, 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 oh, oh, oh. Yes, you'll be saying oh, oh, oh from now on, not ho, ho, ho. So get with the program, Robert. Get with the program. It's, after all, your friend Jabba the Hutt is invited to your Christmas party. You better know that. And you better make sure you've sent him a card, because if you don't, he'll come around and force his way into your home and force his way onto your body. He can be quite nasty when he does that. Yes. Yes, very much so. Very much so. Moronic. Yes. Actually, I've got a video right after my live streams. I decided to do it after my live streams just in case YouTube gives me a strike. It shouldn't technically, because it's not controversial. I'm showing research and stuff like that out of Hong Kong recent. It hasn't been peer reviewed, but it's actually, like they've actually taken images, proper images and all that. And basically, while the current one, and I do basically talk about that criminal organisation in Britain, so you'll get a bit of an idea. I think you'll enjoy the video. It could have had more humour. I actually listened to it at the end of it, and I go, I could have actually applied more humour to that. So, yes, next time I'll be a bit more humorous. I just wasn't adventurous enough, because I thought, with YouTube the way they are with their censorship, I said, better not push it too far and actually get my old channel deleted by them, so, yes. So I stuck to the within reason humour, but, I don't like actually being like that, having to express myself like that, but what can you do? It's a brave new world, apparently. Yes. Unfortunately. Joe, good to see you, mate. Same to you, mate. Merrick. And yes, these lovely people. Yes. And how are you, Christina? Merry Christmas to you as well. I hope you've got somebody naughty in your life. I'm the naughty one over here. I was just recently sick, still going through, but tail end. Maybe, yes, the O one, maybe not, but almost feel excited if it was. Me too, I would. Actually, Hello Kitty actually went through a really she had a better, but she was stressed, and I don't know whether it was just a common cold and all that. She ended up being around me, so she gave it to me as well. And but for me, it was only like one day, and then the next day I was fine, So I don't know, no idea whether or not. I was getting some filthy looks yesterday as I was walking around. Yes, everybody had their nappies on, so yes. And we're in the stairwell. Hello Kitty, because we went shopping and we're in a damn stairwell, and she put it on because it's indoors and all that, and then there were some police officers, and I go, put it on. I just took it out of my, acting as if I was just adjusting it. It's just ridiculous. So we wouldn't get a fine, potentially. So yes, on and off, on and off. It's just ridiculous that you have to basically behave like that. Nappy on, nappy off. Ooh, maybe somebody's going to get angry. You walk into a place, nappy on. You walk through the place, nappy off. Just so you can get through the door, so they won't fucking give you a hard time. It's just ridiculous. It's bloody crazy world we're living in. Absolutely crazy. But anyway, yes, it shouldn't be like this, but unfortunately it is. But I will look. The new variant is actually 7 times. It actually 70 times. That means 70 times. It actually replicates, in your body 70 times faster. But it's not as lethal because it only hits, and I show the evidence. It only hits the bronchial tissue. No effect. It's just a mild cold. A mild cold. Maybe a week for some people. A couple of days for others. It's actually, as I state, it's actually the best for herd immunity. So I'll leave it at that. But do you think the idiots in our capital cities that govern us are going to basically consider that? No. Yeah, they'll just go crazy. You already see the hysteria. People are getting, because it's so contagious, this new variant, everybody's going to get it, which is great because it's going to create herd immunity. But you can see the lines. People have gone crazy. They are lining up in droves because they had a test that actually showed something. And this one's the one you want. If you're going to have anyone, this is the one you want. This is basically the one that does not go into your lungs. It's only in the bronchial tissue. It's a mild cold. It's the best variant you could have come up with. But do you think people are going to basically respond? Nah, they're going to go loony. So, yes, unfortunately, I would have loved to actually release that earlier, but I was scared that basically if it got any strikes against it, I'd lose the live streams. And yeah, it's annoying. I even thought about not doing it at all. I did it, and then should I not? But yeah, I reviewed it and sort of didn't seem as yes. Well, Robbie, where did Delta go? Well, Delta can't outcompete. It's competition. Viruses actually mutate to outcompete other variants, and eventually one variant becomes dominant. And this one can actually replicate 70 times faster, which means that it dominates its environment, which is our bodies. That's what's happening, which is a great thing because it only causes bronchial symptoms, very mild. So even the people who are on kibble eating diets with poor immune systems and all that, they're only going to get mild symptoms. So, even those who have got poor T cells and lymphocytes, they're only going to get mild symptoms. So it's maybe it's a gift from God, as some people have said. Yes. Yes, as a gift, as a Christmas gift. Yes, exactly. Very much so. It's a crazy, crazy world we're living in. Analytic-minded, good to see you, mate. And Merry Christmas to you as well. So tonight, late tonight, I will be at 12 a.m. midnight, Saturday, Australian Eastern Standard Time, daylight savings, especially for our Queensland friends who are going to be 1 hour behind. They'll still be in Friday. Yes. And there'll be basically, that's when the Zoom thing will be started. I'll stick around for a very short amount of time because obviously I've got Christmas tomorrow, the day after, so going elsewhere. So I'll stick around for a few, an hour or two, and then basically after that at 3 o'clock in the morning, there'll be basically the video that I've been talking about. So on the Omicron, yes. So I hope you enjoy that, and hopefully it's the YouTubia mafia and the AI don't overreact to it. I've put it through the whole testing thing, and it did pass all their testing. It even got monetized. I was surprised. So maybe because I'm using cryptic language, the AI can't pick it up, which is great. One can only hope. Shit happens. So, yes. I'm Christmas baking, just looking at my French macaroons, cream puffs, and decorated cookies. No cheating for me. They must be low carb or keto or carnivore versions. Yes, sounds fantastic. Actually, Hello Kitty's actually making us it's a carnivore Japanese cheesecake. So that's going to be nice. Yeah, smartphones are pretty hard, Lukey. Here in the UK, I think it should be easy to catch us. Yes, yes, definitely, Dave. Just go out there, put a T-shirt on, say, if you've got, spit on me, or give me a hug, even nicer. Give me a Christmas hug and a Christmas gift. Austria is talking about 7,200 euro fines for people who haven't had a close encounter with Jabba the Hutt every 3 months. Do you mean you have to invite Jabba the Hutt to your home every 3 months? Shocking. Absolute shocking. I just had to sort out Derby Redneck. Can people... There's a few moderators in the chat. Can you guys pitch in so I don't have to do all the work? It's Christmas after. Move on. Yes, it's crazy. It's crazy in some countries in the world. Yep, they still don't understand. Yes, they definitely don't. Look, they're looking at the British stuff, and you'll understand. When you see the video, you'll understand how the British, the Imperial, arseholes in the Imperial College, London College, they basically are the ones that started all this in the beginning with all the nonsense, jumped the gun. They're basically saying, it's 5.4 times worse and blah, blah. No, it's actually 70 times more contagious. They got it wrong. The Hong Kong people actually did the proper tests. They actually even did the actual, they actually put people into devices and actually tested them and actually saw that it was in the bronchial tissue and not in the lungs. They actually saw the amount of viral load actually as it was building up and all that. So they actually did the proper science. These guys just did epidemiology bullshit. That's the difference, where these guys did actual research to determine exactly what was happening. It's not peer-reviewed yet. It's going through peer review at the moment. So that's why it's not. It's actually, they've published the results on the Hong Kong university site, and that's what I show. But they haven't basically released the full the full study with all the data. They're just showing the images and stuff like that in the bronchial tissue and stuff like that. So, once that all comes out, the full amount, I think it's already started, because there are some people saying, "Oh, it's not as it doesn't attack. It's not as dangerous in terms of susceptibility to lung stuff like that." It's starting to seep out, especially in Australasia. Probably not in Europe, because in Australasia we have a lot of contacts with Hong Kong through our universities here. So that's why it's getting here quicker, this information. But I don't think it's actually seeping into Europe yet, or North America. They're more further away and probably less aware of it. So basically, really, when I do, hopefully it stays up, please share it around and get your people to find out about it. Yes, we should be having parties, exactly, to spread around the Christmas joy. Anyway, let's move on. I just had what might be running nose. Oh, yes, you had a running nose, did you now? Bit of congestion and cough. Ah, yes. It may have been, Joe. It may have been the best thing that could have happened to you. The best Christmas present that you could have received. Yes. And potentially, because you're on a species-appropriate diet with a good vitamin D level, you probably will get long-term T lymphocyte memory, which is the most important thing you can get. That means you'll have really good defense in any future, outbreak. Yes. So consider yourself privileged. Yes. The rest of us will have to wait. Yes. Escaping lockdown, so to speak. Yes, I know. I'm worried about all this. Talk about several times before. I'm trying to be optimistic. Look, yeah, it's the nonsense. It's the herd mentality. It's all this madness. I wish they were more interested in herd immunity with the current variant rather than all this other absolute crackpottery madness. Also, just a reminder to all you lovely people, don't forget to hit the like button. And another sort of announcement that I'll make and let people know, from next year, all my live streams will be subscriber only. So this one is open to everyone, but subscriber only next year. So my sort of view is, if I'm doing it from a subs. If somebody's not subbed, because I've actually noticed a few people putting comments and me answering theirs and not being subscribed, I'm going, well, I'm not going to waste my time. So it's simple as that. So if you're not subscribed, you won't be able to put a comment in my live streams or ask a question. So that would be the new policy. It won't be for these live streams, open blanket, but as of next year, all live streams will be subscriber only. If you're not subscribed, you will not be able to ask anything. And I think that is a fair thing. So I thought about it, have chatted with other people, and they said, well, why don't you do it that way? And I go, yeah, you're probably right. Yep, make it subscriber only. It'll force people, if they want to ask questions and get their answers questioned, to subscribe. And if they don't, well, tough. They get 0. I think if you're not supporting the channel, you should get 0. Simple as that, in my personal opinion. And the other people that have basically encouraged me to go that way, I agree with them. They are right. YouTube should be censoring vagoons for misanthropy. Exactly, Robert. Not those talking about, yes, that individual. Yes, that awful individual. Exactly. UK were too arrogant to listen to the South African doctors. Exactly. But slowly they are realizing that they're pretty accurate about, OMI. Yeah, that's a good one, OMI. Yes, definitely they are, Dave. And even in Australia, they're starting to realize, and even in the US, there's people turning up all these different places and actually noticing pretty much very mild symptoms, So very, very mild symptoms in that regard. So they're getting a positive test, and obviously it's very easy to get a positive test with something that replicates 70 times faster than the other ones and are competing the other ones. But everybody's, maybe getting a positive test, but a lot of them are not showing any signs, And so I think Omicron is the best thing that could have happened. It's, for us, because it's going to be very hard now for them to maintain these lockdowns and all this bullshit. So I think a better thing couldn't have happened. So maybe it was a gift from God against these misanthropists. My wish now is that I earn some land in the middle of nowhere with some animals, electricity, water, internet access. I don't feel like dealing with society and most people anymore. I think once this is over, people should get back to normal, hopefully. I think it's a bit of a trying time for a lot of us and all that, but I think human contact and human interaction is important for all of us. I couldn't see myself cutting myself off society or off the grid or going, having nothing to do with humans. I'm very much a sociable person, and I think fundamentally humans all are. And I think it's really important that we always remember that. Yes, we're going through crazy times. I agree. But to go away and pull away from it all is basically to surrender to these misanthropists. I'm not going to surrender. I'm here. I'm fucking staying here. I'm not going anywhere. And I'm going to be in your fucking faces. And if you don't like it, is basically my attitude to these people, So their misanthropy is the minority view. Most people fundamentally are good. They're just very easily misled. That's the fundamental thing. So, yeah, please, Lukey, don't turn against society, against the majority of humanity, which tend to be good. I know sometimes people say, I've had bad experiences. Well, you know what? Most good people feel uncomfortable. Most people don't have that forward, feel uncomfortable to sort of engage with just a stranger because of the way our society is. The majority of people that are going to engage with you out there are going to be people that want something from you, con artists or people like that. And unfortunately, many people have very poor experiences because they engage more with those people rather than good people. But that shouldn't cloud your view. The majority of humanity are fundamentally good. If you sit down and talk to anyone, they are fundamentally good. So, yeah, in that regard. They're just easily misled, unfortunately. Anyway, so is Helen a close friend of yours? Yes, she is. I've seen her in Bart's video chats before, but never realised that you knew her personally. Yeah, she just lives across from me. Very close. She's a neighbour and a good friend. So she'll be celebrating Christmas with us tomorrow because her family is all in Hong Kong. So she's all alone. So I invited her to our Christmas thing. So, and my brothers were fine with it. They know her. They've met her before. They've invited her before. So she's a good friend of the family. And yeah, so there'll be probably about 13 or there may be more. Depends. There are a couple of people that we don't know if they all turn up. We're going to be about 14, 15 people. So it'll be a good gathering of us. Sit around, have a nice meal, some nice meals. There'll be some people that will be having some inappropriate meals. We won't talk about those family members. And I just sit there. I'm not there to basically tell people how to eat or how to live their lives. If they want to ask me, fine. But yeah, I'm more there for the sociable part of things. And people know my history, what I went through, and they've seen my turnaround. So they can decide for themselves, But yes, she's a good friend. So yes, so be nice to her, and she's a nice person anyway. You've been overdoing it, mate. Ah, yes, Spencer. Yes. If you listen to the politicians and to the media, it's going to kill everyone. Yes. Unfortunately, people are crazy. They'll be redneck. Good to see you, mate. Yes. Yes. Oh, those lovely government people. Yes, nothing like them. Yes. They are. Very much so. Very much so. Not gonna lie. Oh, well, you could. I'm going to cheat tomorrow. So am I. I've got gin here. I've got whiskey here. That's what I'm taking. I'm contributing the alcohol. I've got basically ciders. So yeah, I'll be definitely cheating tomorrow. It'll be steak and alcohol all day. So yes. So anybody tells you otherwise, they're basically fucking lying. Or there's something wrong with them. That's all I can say. Yes. 11 o'clock. I can have my coffee. Break my time restricted feeding, that is. And it's still a bit on the warmish side. Yes. But I usually, because Hello Kitty's making a carnivore sort of cheesecake, which is fantastic. That means, I don't have to touch any of the other stuff. So it'll just basically, my only abuse will be alcohol tomorrow. So I'll get myself ready for that with some B vitamins and some choline. And yes, and then another dose when I get back home. Yes, 1 gram of choline before, 1 gram of 2 grams of taurine before, and 2 B vitamins, and then when I get back, 2 B vitamins, some choline, and also taurine. So that'll be my next mix. So I'll drink that with a glass of water, so a bit of hydration, and that will be it. And then I'll head to bed after that. So yes. Then I'll find out what we're doing for Sunday. Anyway, yes, you can do that. Yeah, I usually, as my penance, I usually do as well. But I'm doing penance still afterwards, fasting and exercise. Yeah, I do that as well. I do a 24-hour fast and some exercise. Yes, so definitely sort of a crash. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with your brother. Yeah, I do exactly the same thing. Well, it's you're going to get some peeling. Peeling is not the same as burning. So where you've got oxidized poofer and stuff like that. But yeah, you will get some level. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why darker skinned people can stay out for more hours. My maximum before I start peeling is about 5 hours. Beyond that, I'll start peeling as well. And that's taking a retinol supplement, like in a sense that I can do that. If I don't, it usually drops down to about 3.5 hours. So light skin, the lighter your skin, the less you need to be out there exposed, because in the northern latitudes, you would have had less overall, even in winter months. If you're in the tropics, you're going to be basically blasted. It's the reality. Even when I'm in Bali, I'll actually cruise around and all that, but I go into shade, out of shade, into shade, out of shade. So I'm only in the sun, probably about an hour each time, or half an hour, or whatever. And as a consequence, it sort of mitigates that problem, even though I'm in and out all day. So, I'll probably cycle around, stuff like that. I'll stop at some place, have a drink, then move on, stuff like that. Have a chat for half an hour or whatever with someone, or meet up with a friend. So usually what the case is. So when I'm in the tropics. But if you're constantly out for a considerable amount, it doesn't matter how long, unless you're, completely like the Maasai, black-skinned. Yes. Oh, yeah, so deadly. They sacked about 20,000 nurses, doctors, and paramedics in Australia. Precisely. It's ridiculous. And that's going to come back and sting us really bad in the future, because our waiting lists are going to blow out massively, because there won't be enough people to do the work, especially in a population which is quite sick in the first place. It's ridiculous. That's why I say the best thing you could actually do for your friends and relatives and all that is remind them about this situation, Robbie, and basically tell them, if you don't keep yourself healthy, you're going to be in line like the rest of them out there, trying to get services that are non-existent. Yes. I wish I had a speedo for too much information. But I've got too much in front to cover. Okay. Fair enough. You could be adventurous, mate. You could be adventurous. Depends on the beach. They'll pick you up after. How adventurous. I had a throat itch on Monday. Oh, God. Throat itch. Body and headache on Tuesday. Body ache Wednesday. And almost done now. Oh, you poor thing. As I said earlier, outcompeted. It is being outcompeted in the bodies of humans. Yes, you've been a naughty boy, haven't you? I hope you've done your couple of Hail Marys and all that other stuff, whipped yourself and stuff like that. Anyway, we'll move on. I can't remember the last time I was sick with a cold after switching to a meat-based diet. Yeah, pretty much that's been the experience. It's like, Hello Kitty says the same. We were talking about it yesterday as we were walking. Me the same. The only time I actually get any issues is because I'm susceptible to the norovirus. So, the virus that usually hits like cruise ships and stuff like that. That's why I don't go on cruise liners. I avoid them because I'm more susceptible to that virus that gets around on cruise ships and stuff like that. It gives you the, gut issues. So I have no other symptoms other than diarrhea, and it's usually from the norovirus. So I'll get a light fever initially, and I know it's and once it hits me in the gut, I go, oh God, it's not that again. Yeah. So I usually stay away from work because it is quite contagious, and that's And I usually hammer myself with higher dose of vitamin D and taurine and stuff like that to basically clear it out. And the next day I usually go to work. So, and it usually by the next day I'm back to normal. But any respiratory thing, God, I haven't had a respiratory issue for I can't remember when. Sort of mild sort of symptoms. That's about it at worst. So, yes, it does make a difference. Does make a difference. But I do notice that if I've had a period of, cheating and stuff like that, I'm more susceptible. So yes. It's just because you're on a meat heavy diet most of the time, the more cheating you do, the more vulnerable you become. I've noticed that as well. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've only seen my doctor once this year, and that was to basically get to find out exactly what the results were. Remember, I was talking to you guys last time, and to get a new form to go and do some additional tests on my lung. That was basically it. That's the only reason I turned up for that appointment. So just need to find out where I'm at, basically. But for no other reason. Yes. The O did it. I think I was just behind at the time. So yes, more about that, but I've already covered all that. Low carb eggnog and mulled wine are my cheats for the holiday, outside of too much ham and turkey to make myself sick. Yeah, we're going to have a lot of varieties of meats. So it'll be all sorts of meats, but yes, it'll be nice stuff, from sausages to beef, lamb, pretty much a vast variety of different meats, and cured meats as well. So, and yes, my main cheats will be the alcohol, pretty much. And I know that Manice Lara, she's coming down, and her hubby, they're getting married soon, but her partner, basically, he's with the SAS, so he's he can drink. So it's going to be interesting. So yes. Yes, none of us believe that myth, because basically all coronaviruses, you cannot basically prevent transmission. It doesn't matter whether you've had multiple encounters with Jabba the Hutt or none. It can still transmit, because it's just the way it is. It's just basically, in particular, how much you will is irrelevant, because pretty much antibodies actually deal with after the fact. Macrophage, with cytokine storm risks, all that, if it's not regulated by vitamin D, all those are after the fact. Your first line of defense is T lymphocytes. Always has been. And they are only basically in a good nick if you've basically got an animal-based diet with taurine and basically vitamin D. Vitamin D basically is the important ingredient for the stem cell production in the bone marrow to produce the T lymphocytes. And then they get stored in your thymus. And your thymus is kept healthy and enlarged, so it doesn't shrink over time, in a good nick, so it can provide a good T lymphocyte storage container. It's a bit like, think about like your gallbladder that holds your bile. Well, that's what your thymus is. It holds the T lymphocytes. It's the primary storage of T lymphocytes. And then when something comes into the body, it unleashes them. So the more they're in there, the better. If you want to prevent shrinkage as you age, prevent shrinkage of your thymus, which is in that middle part, just below just above your rib cage, that sort of, that middle part, from the base of it, just a bit above that, there, for that not to shrink over time, what do you need to do? You basically need to have taurine in your diet, which is a meat-based diet. Or eat fish or whatever, food that are high in taurine. So the taurine is going to basically maintain that. It will also, like it does remodeling of your heart and all the other organs as well, is important for the remodeling. It prevents left ventricular in your heart. That's the reason I take it, to prevent hypertrophy of the heart. So it actually, when you remodel your heart, because you replace all your tissue every 7 years, more or less, you want basically that remodeling to happen properly. Well, that's the important thing. Now, if your thymus has shrunk, you're old, let's say 80 years old, and you've had a kibble diet for a long time, it's going to take up to 7 years to regrow a more enlarged thymus by eating a heavy animal and supplementing taurine, potentially, because your biosynthesis drops quite a bit. So all these are important to be done. Got it? Anyway. And yep. Anyway, so smartphone typing horrible. Yes. I know. I mean, this morning that I was on Bart's thing that he was doing, I was using my smartphone as well. But it's much easier with computers. But with smartphones, it can be a bloody, food grade hydrogen peroxide mouthwash. Quercetin, zinc, vitamin D, K2, Kakadu plum, NAC, silico, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you've pretty much covered everything. I wouldn't do too much NAC, to be honest. But for this sort of condition, yes, fine. Have all that in. I've got a lot of that sort of stuff in my kit, if I need it, I need it. Now with the current strain, I'm wondering, do I really need it? So, as long as I've got, I'm eating a steak every day and I've got good vitamin D levels, I'm less concerned when it comes to the new variant. Far less concerned in that regard. So, yes, bring it on, I say. Bring on our Ommi friend. Oh, shit, Luke. Yes, he's doing all sorts of things. I'm trying my best to get well, Spence, you're not getting into the right crowds, are you? You should be getting into those lines, all those people lining up to get to go to the clinics and go get tested. That's your best opportunity. Just go past them and hug them. You're bound to get it. If you really want to get it, that's your best way of getting it. It's not hard. I mean, they may look at you funny, but and they may show signs of sort of anxiety. We're talking about people now that have been terrorized for the last year or so, 1 year plus. So yes, they will show signs like that. But your greatest opportunity is that. At most, maybe the hugging is going a bit too far, but close proximity at least, yes. And especially the sneezes, get close to the sneezes. So it's not difficult, Spencer. Not difficult at all. Stop making excuses, boy. Stop making excuses. Go on. Basically, give yourself a couple of Hail Marys and give yourself a couple of beatings, for a really poor performance. Oh, that's it. That's it. Like the old geezers. Actually, I have to get back into lifting some weights next year. I haven't done anything for a while now, but yes, I've been cheating, using a bit of leucine to maintain my muscles. Oh well, you got to do what you got to do. I'm really annoyed at my mum tendency to disregard my dietary principles, experience, and her health philosophies. She's calling me crazy for saying I feel Slow after eating starch, heavy meals. Well, the thing is, your mum's not fat adapted yet. She hasn't really gone any keto. She's never gone carnivore completely. I mean, she's, yes, switching away from more of the high carbohydrate stuff that she used to do, and she's feeling better, as you said last time, but at the same time, she hasn't gone the full to experience. Once you've experienced, you know the difference. She doesn't know the difference yet. Until you experience it, then you go, wow. I mean, I know one of the guys at work, he actually said, I really find it hard because all my family just carb eaters. But he did keto for a while, and he noticed the energy. He said, I couldn't believe the energy. Now I'm just flat again. And I said, yeah, you're flat because you don't have any energy. And he said, I can see you going for hours, Harry. How do you do it? I go, you know how it's done, Mark. You know how it's done. He goes, yeah, you're right. I said, you've experienced it. None of these other people have, but you have. These people every 2 hours are in the trough getting their boost, their sugar boost. You got away from that for a while. That's where you need to go. You need to basically, and I said, I can't do that. You need to have a conversation with you. I said, through the silly season, forget it. After Christmas and New Year and all that, you need to sort of sit down and try and make some changes to your life, your family, and all that. So it's, at the end of the day, it's that sort of stuff. But people sometimes find it hard because of the food environment they're in, even in the home. If there's stuff there, you're going to cheat. It's the reality. That's why I don't keep any alcohol and stuff like that at home anymore. Obviously I've got it for tomorrow, but once tomorrow goes, that's it. I won't keep the stuff. It's deliberate. If it's not there, can't be eaten or drunk. Simple as that. But if it's in the environment, it's hard. See, our ancestors didn't have to combat that. They were outdoors all the time amongst a whole lot of people, looking for the next meal, trying to hunt down the next meal. So they never had the issue. We live in a food environment. G'day, hello, kitty. Yeah, I got your parcel. Got it right here. So do not worry about it. Yes. Merry Christmas to you as well. And I will see you later when you come to pick this up anyway. So that's the reality. It's just unfortunate the way it is. But it's hard for many people. Living out in the wilderness, having no access to the stuff makes it easy. You can even see the tribal people when they actually contact, like Mary Ruddock was talking about the tribal people that were contacting people and how the blood sugar levels of that tribal chief he used to get most of the treats, being the chief, his blood sugars was way up. Not accidental, because he was eating all the treats the tourists were giving, the majority of them. So he was getting sick and putting on more weight than the others in the tribe. But they have no idea because they have no experience. They've lived in a natural environment where they access their food in a seasonal way, and for them, that was it. Now there are other options, but they don't have the dietary knowledge or anything, or realize what this stuff does to the body, until it's too late, and they've deteriorated. Yeah, exactly. Yes, my father like that as well. Only he's crazy with what's your salt intake? Oh yeah, one of those. Yeah, even though we need more salt, it's only when you go excessively high carbohydrate that you have high water retention and you retain a lot of the electrolytes. That's why Walter Kempner used to encourage his people that did extremely low fat diets, high carbohydrate, because of the water retention. In order to avoid blood pressure, he advised them not to take any electrolytes, not any salt, no potassium, no magnesium, no nothing. No, like that. Anyway, it's a thing with me. I've got to be it's the comical side of me coming out. I can't help myself. Oh yes, allopathic physicians. Yes, would never clue. if it's not a drug, they have no idea. Have I seen Supersize Me Too? Holy chicken and earthlings. No. Nope, I haven't. I'm not really a person that actually really bothers with a lot of the these sort of things. It's just generic stuff. I view it. I'm really interested in the science. I'm a purist when it comes to research and stuff like that in archaeology. I really want to understand how physiology works, how quantum biology works, photonics, how our body is modulated, interacts with the earth and the environment around it. That's the stuff and how can I biohack it to live longer? That's the stuff that I'm really interested in, which is way beyond just the nutritional side that most people focus on. I know the nutritional side. I look at the N15 data. I don't need to be convinced anymore. People have been super and hyper carnivore for most of their existence. Most of this sort of stuff is for the generic people that are still kibble eating to see this sort of stuff. I do encourage people to direct them towards this sort of stuff because it can be useful. It can be informative for the kibble eaters out there, which is 90+% of the population, 95+%, or maybe 97. It's the majority of the population are basically kibble eaters of one sort or another. They are the ones that need to see these sort of things to basically move more closer to a sort of a low carb sort of state, which at least will improve their health in a market way compared to, the sad diet. But, for people that come to this channel, I mean, you guys are way beyond that level of competency and don't really need to watch that sort of stuff. You really want to know how detailed things work, how we can actually use what are the best arguments to use against the veganerized community and others. Some of the videos that I do and other stuff like that. It's that information you guys are coming here for. And I don't really see much. I do look. I have supported in the past certain videos that have been done, and I actually even contributed to like contributing the production, also contributing in purchasing, like a license. So it's not as if I haven't supported this because it's important for the general, but it's not really that important for me. It's more of a sort of a community contribution than anything else. Yes. Like the pom-pom. Yes. Anyway, I'll move on. Exactly, mate. Exactly. Yes. Exactly, Derby. Yep. She's been especially nosy. Mummies are like that sometimes. It takes time. Get in your job and get out. Yep, very much so. Wise words. Yes. Yeah, go and live your life. Find a wonderful senorita to enjoy life with as well. That likes likes your lifestyle. Anyway, I won't go into that any further. And Dave's asking, what? As I said, my usual poison is cider and gin. I'll have a bit of whiskey or vodka. I actually don't know whether the old man's got any grappa, or we call it cipro, moonshine, basically. So I don't know whether he's hiding any. He may be. He does that sometimes. I have to go to when I do go to his home, I have to sort of search. There's only a few places where he hides it. And then he goes, oh, well, there's not a lot there. I say, well, I only want a bit. Yes. We used to do our own moonshine years ago, so it was, for personal use, it's fine. It's not illegal. As long as you don't sell it and it's for family use, so, and that's what we used to do with an Italian friend. We used to basically produce our own wine and moonshine and stuff like that from the leftovers of the wine, the skins and all that. That's what you ferment in the distill, and basically then put it a couple of times through, and you get a 70% proof, really good. And then you put aniseed in it for flavour, the stuff that's in ouzo. But we don't put a lot. We just put, because you're not trying to make ouzo, you're trying to make something which has a bit of flavour, and that's about it. Oops. That's it. Get the F out. Bluesman, good to see you. Merry Christmas to you as well, mate. Keep the faith. Keep the faith. I'm going to do idiotic things. It's to be expected. It's Christmas after pre-Christmas. Well, yeah, post-Christmas. Pre-Christmas. Post-Christmas, I've usually got the hangover. Fair enough. Fair enough. I hope it's not kibble that you're actually out there buying for your rallies to poison them. Anyway, enjoy yourself. Yeah, last minute presents. Yes, I've done that before, where I've gone, I've got this for this person, that person, and then, oh, I forgot. Yes. So it's usually when my nieces and nephews were much younger and all that, so it's primarily for them. But yes, I know what you mean. More in regards to Lukey. Rick, Merry Christmas as well. Yes. Is that, you mean upvoted? You mean basically the like as well? I hope you do. Yes, and whoever hasn't hit the like button, please hit the like button, or the dislike if you're a vagoon. Yes, I'll accept anything. Equal opportunity, button pressing. And you can plug either orifice if you're into that sort of stuff as well. I got no problems. Gary, Merry to you as well. Yes, Merry Christmas, mate. Good to see you here. Oops. Why not? Yeah. I mean, obviously you don't want to be taking astaxanthin for a very long period of time. And vitamin E, we recycle it if you're in a low carbohydrate state with glutathione, so we don't really need much unless we're actually dealing with stored PUFA and losing weight. And retinol, again, for the sun primarily. because usually balancing it out with vitamin D from the sun. So it's pretty much a sort of a virtuous circle. And then the MK4 that comes from the food as well. So it's a nice combination. But the astaxanthin is usually, when you go away and you're going to cheat, and there potentially could be inappropriate things in there, astaxanthin is a good thing for holidays. Yes, I've talked about that before, especially when you don't know what things are cooked in as well with seed oils. So usually recommend a low dose vitamin E, retinol for the sun, and basically astaxanthin as well for refreshing the PUFA fatty acids. It is quite good at that. It's not perfect. It's not perfect, but it does refresh. But you can't take it for too long because it does actually build up in the body, and that can be a problem. So, eventually your liver will detox it and get rid of it. But it does have an antioxidant nature, but it can be problematic in large amounts. So you don't want to be supplementing with astaxanthin for very long periods of time. So be very, very careful and mindful of that. And get a good brand that doesn't have any seed oils in it either. So be careful about the sources. It is sourced from fish. It is basically that red little tinge that's in the middle of the bone on both sides of the fish. That's astaxanthin. That's what the fish use to refresh its high PUFA content in its tissue. So if you're cooking fish and having fish, always have it with the skin on, not skinless, because you're going to lose the astaxanthin, which is a very important element to be consumed with the fish, especially for omega-3 fatty acids that are going to be consumed with the fish. So keep that in mind. Very important. Yes, whole fish, not just the skinless versions. I don't recommend skinless at all. Yes, a little less cool or trendy or cute. Anyway, it's enough frivolities. Michael, good to see you, mate. Yes. Yes, we've all had those experiences. I never had that experience with my old man, Dad. Dad knew what I looked like before. Then he saw my journey in the last 11 years, and he saw my improvements in my health and everything and my whole turnaround. And he's going, there's something in this, And then when he started eating more meats and stuff like that and starting and doing some little weights and getting stronger, he goes, I feel stronger. I feel better now than I felt 10 years ago. I'm going to continue this way. And he's gravitated more further away from vegetables and eating more animal foods than what he's done for a number of years now, which is good. So he's turned his life around as well. And he's doing taurine and stuff like that, and he's feeling great. So, and he also has noticed with taurine supplementation on top of the meat. I wish he ate more meat, but he's noticed, and he gets out, so he gets vitamin D and all that sort of stuff. But he's also noticed a much stronger improvement, in terms of not getting, not even a sniffle. He goes, I can't believe it. I said, I haven't had a sniffle now for a while. This is the last couple of years that he's been doing that. So, yes, and he's 87 and he's hardly had a sniffle. That's telling you something. There is something about the diet and the sun combination that really, really works. As I've said, salt, sun, and meat. Yes, it's not too complicated. Easy message. Should be put on T-shirts and flogged. The message is simple. Yes. The science is much more complicated than the archaeology, but the message is simple once you understand. Harut, good to see you, mate. And yes, happy holiday season to you as well. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you as well, mate. Now, I do know that, what's that in regard? You are trolling? not sure. Anyway, move on. Yeah, you've had fantastic muscle building progress. That's because you've fixed your thyroid issue. You were doing weights before, but you weren't actually putting on anything. And you were cold. Now you're warm, you're strong, and you're putting on muscle way easier. Yes. So the meat and the sun have turned your life around. Do you do consultings? No, I don't. I used to, but I don't. I got a day job. I got no time. Should I ask Bart? Yes, you should. Yep, just go to Bart, ask him. Yeah, there's different. It depends what it is. If I usually say if it's an addiction, go to Pim. She's much better at addictions. She's specializes in addictions, whether they're carb related or non-carb related addictions. So if you've got an addiction, go to her. If you've got a general carnivore type issue related or health issue, go to Bart. And if you've got an intractable where nobody's really been able to help, Mary Ruddock is pretty good for those. She deals with, sort of which I used to do as well to some extent, but I've redirected the people that I used to deal with. Now I just basically write them out an email, send them back, and give them a bit of a grounding of what, how they should deal with it. But I don't do any consultancies anymore. So I direct them to Mary Ruddock for the more intractable things, because she's got experience in those, having dealt with people with really severe conditions. So, and she's had severe conditions herself, like me, so she understands that sort of stuff. I think when you've experienced that and you've gone through that, you really understand it much better than others. So that's your three options in that regard. So Bart would cover most of the stuff, and the specialized areas would be Mary and Pim in that regard. So depends what you're looking for. Okay, Luke. Imagine I'm making chimp speech. Okay, it's more about his mother. I'm not going to go there. Yes, more about Luke's family. Ah, yes, nothing like it. Animal fats and things like meat give you colon. Yes, there's plenty of that shit around, as you know. I think I can't remember the video. I need to actually find the video that I did on the poofer, which had, and make a snippet out of it, or get El Lama to do a snippet for me. Been doing a few, and I'm going to upload it as snippets. I've made a folder now called mini. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Taurine is definitely good, especially for the over 50. G'day, Shell. Yeah, so I would say that I need to find that video, because it's where they gave the rat just just bacon, cured meat, bacon, nothing else, and it actually was protective. The only thing that was protective, and it just basically illustrates a point that a combination. That's why I say salt is in cured meats like bacon, salt, and because they actually gave other meats, just plain old other meats, didn't have the same effect. So this combination, it's because of the sort of the effects of nitric oxide as well that is actually happening there as well from the cured meats. This combination. And usually if you're in a low carbohydrate state, you usually produce more nitric oxide, better vasodilation in that sort of state because of the higher arginine content of the food that you're eating. So generally speaking, that was mimicking a low carbohydrate diet perfectly. And it was actually showing a regression in something that was being induced to the rats. And that's basically, and that works in other mammal models as well. We just can't do that experiment on humans because it's unethical. But if it works on other mammals that are not even meat, like carnivore adapted, these are omnivores. These are basically rats that are omnivores. They're not carnivores. And it works on them, on omnivores, even if they were arguing we're omnivores, well, it works on another omnivore. So what are you saying? Do you get the picture? Yeah, so, yeah, it's pretty much, they got no argument. Absolutely none whatsoever. Yes, I've heard that they are not too bad. We're in Australia, so I can't comment about other sources and what they produce and all that. Ah, yes. You're welcome. Yes. Depending, mate, whether you need them or not. I have liver pills are not too bad in the sense because you're having just a small amount. It's like a natural, sort of like the traditional where they cut a bit of liver off and they fit. That's probably okay. I don't have a problem with that. But excessive amounts of some people have been doing recently, I found out, following paleomedicina. Probably not the wisest thing to do because nobody really does that in nature. So you'd never get those quantities for one person. It's usually got shared around in smaller amounts. So unless you've got specific genetics like myself that need to get certain things. But that's where I'm a minority. I'm special. Yes. Yes, they all go through complex 1. Yes, highly energetic, oxidized, and creating a lot of ROS. Yes, nothing like carbs to really increase the ROS for the mitochondria. Is great stuff. Yes, like rocket fuel. Yes. You have to have cars, especially all the actual rubber hoses and all that have to be specialised for biofuel. Otherwise, you can really wreck your motor if they're not installed. So you've got to be very careful about that sort of stuff. Very bloody careful. Anyway. As I said, make sure your hoses are adapted to it. So people in North America, Australia, or Europe, or whatever, if you've got a vehicle, do not put biofuel in your vehicle unless you've actually had your hoses altered and changed to be able to adapt to it, because they will degrade far more with biofuel. Can be a problem. So just keep that in mind. Hope to go back to Ethiopia and become a farmer the way my ancestors were before. Why not, HD? Why not? Yeah, look, at the end of the day, it's where you find your happiness. So that's the most important thing. I've had times where I've thought about, packing it all up and going back to Greece at some point. Who knows what I'm going to do in the long run. Find myself a nice, beautiful island in the Aegean and enjoy life very differently. Do a bit of fishing, get my lifetime pension from Australia, and, enjoy life differently. Yeah, look, at the end of the day, I know where you're coming from. Yeah, I'm sort of sick of some of the nonsense that I have to put up with as well at work and all that. And And in a further away, I mean, even in Australia, there's a number of beautiful places that I've thought about sort of leaving and going to a more sort of coastal area, small town in a coastal area where there's a more better community in that regard. So I've thought about that as well. Not the only one, mate. HD, you're not the only one. Complete Git. Merry Christmas to you as well. Yes. At least you're not a complete moron like those Jabba the Hutt friends out there. Yes. Could be worse. Could be worse. Ah, yes. Everyone wants to make something. Yes. I need to get back to my ice cream making. Carnivore ice cream making. Can you do a video on thyroid and carnivore? Yeah, look, it is planned to be done next year. In that regard, and covering all the aspects. I mean, I advise people, like through my emails and stuff like that, and sometimes I talk about it and all that. And there was going to be a follow-on in regards to the rapist type nonsense, because I did some stuff on that. The ones, the anti-repeat stuff. There is some stuff on that on the thyroid. But I need to do a sort of a comprehensive one. I'm thinking about doing it next year. I know exactly when. Depends on. It's in a list of things to be done, but it's a long list, and there are other things that are in that priority in terms of things like protocols and all that. The cancer one that I haven't friggin' finished yet. So there's a couple of things that I'm still working on that need to be done and put out there. Unfortunately, there are priorities, but yeah, it needs to be covered because it is a lot. There's a lot of nonsense around there on that issue, and it needs to be covered comprehensively, looking at all the pathways, how they work, all the enzymes, and also all the nonsense and why the nonsense is invalid. Giving providing like a comprehensive video to just debunk all the nonsense once and for all type thing, like I've done with some of the others. That's the purpose, like basically doing a comprehensive. Yes, they do tend to be long sometimes, but there's no way of actually debunking something unless you actually explain thoroughly how things work. And then people are able to use that evidence, because if you give them half an answer or a shallow answer, they'll never understand it. It's like on some of the Randall cycle and some of the other stuff. I've got Elizabeth from Mexico, and I've promised her a video to really explain it properly and all the intricacies. So, and some of the stuff about gluconeogenesis and all that, and all these sort of different, because it's a dynamic system. And you can explain it in reductionist like everybody else does, but nobody gets it. You really have to understand the dynamics. And that's what I like to do, is explaining those dynamics. And so people then can get it and go, aha, that's why I see this happening to me, or that's or those when I test myself or whatever, I see that result. So it's just more with visuals to explain it properly so people get it, how it works, the dynamics of a real body, rather than all this sort of reductionist nonsense that you get and lead us down the pathway of complete and utter crackpottery. That's what happens. Because not understanding the dynamics of a system, you end up thinking, oh, if that's happening like that, you need this, like you need carbs to basically support that, when really it's a misunderstanding, because you're looking at it in a reductionist way. You're not seeing it in a dynamic way. That when you throw in the carbs, this other thing happens, which is completely ignored from the reductionists. That's the sort of stuff to demystify that properly, so you understand basically making very complex processes in the body as simple and as understandable as possible is sort of my mission in a sense. Yes, exactly. Yes, that sort of stuff. HD, yes. Nothing like a good yeast strain. Oh, thank you, Shell. Thank you. Love the hat. Ah, yes. It's stylish. I love the pom-pom as well. Probably my sixth sense of humour. Ricky, generally no. You don't need supplements. You just need food. All your B vitamins, and if you're depleted in a lot of stuff like minerals and stuff like that, you can eat crustaceans, you can eat organ meats, you can eat a lot of that sort of stuff to basically build up. That could be your ultimate vitamin. A lot of people don't like eating that sort of stuff, so I go, okay, then for the next 3 months you're going to do this or that or whatever. Like for instance, gut restoration. Like your beneficial bacteria. B vitamins, no more than 50 milligrams for 3 months with high dose vitamin D to restore, because they exchange B vitamins amongst themselves. You need to feed the bugs to basically rebuild them. And you need to also use Reuteri, a specific strain of Reuteri, which is DSM. What is it again? I think it's 19723, I think the number. And that one specifically suppresses pathogenics. It actually clears, it's really good for SIBO. It clears out of the stomach and out of the small intestine. It clears all the pathogenic bacteria. It cleanses together with bile. So there's a number of things like that. So I usually recommend for specific circumstances. But if somebody doesn't require, why would I recommend? It's not for everyone. There are specific things, and I've always tried to remind people like that, but sometimes it's not getting through, that all you need is to, if you can convert, even for instance, you don't need folate. You don't need to eat folate. Well, you can get a bit from eggs and liver and stuff like that, but you don't need to eat it. Your body can convert methionine to choline, and choline, that's it. It's DSM 17938. Yep. Thank you, Spencer. I just couldn't remember it exactly. That's a strain, and that's the Swedish strain. They have a patent on it. So you've got to buy that. There's no other supplement company that sells it. And that's been proven to either cleared C. diff as well. I've got a video on C. diff as well, and a number of other pathogens. Now, getting back to what I was saying, you don't really need supplementation. You just need you can convert methionine to basically choline to support the methylation cycle, choline betaine, and then choline can be converted to, now choline is very high in eggs. So if you have a couple of eggs, you'll get plenty. And that means that extra choline will be converted to folate in your body by your liver. You don't need to eat not an ounce, not a gram, nothing, completely zilch, just a steak that may not have practically very little folate. You can convert it from methionine all the way. Now, there are, in different populations, between 2 and 4% of the population that don't have that conversion capacity. So they need to consume more choline-rich foods, and usually more eggs, stuff like that, in order to get that extra choline, because their ancestors may have consumed more organ meats, a mix of organ meats that are very high in choline. And it's a mix, because like Ukwaretsi is a mix of all the different organ meats, which basically means you get a balance and don't get too much of the other hypervitaminosis or too much, minerals or stuff like that. So you're not overloading your system, because you're getting a mix, but also you're getting a lot of choline, because choline and taurine are in all tissue, which is great in that regard. But if you can't stomach those things, then as a short-term thing, yes. And I always say to people, if we're seeing certain results, I usually say, well, have you checked your genetics? Maybe you've got some of the genetics which are similar to me. It's very rare. Normally it doesn't happen. But if some people basically say, I'm doing that and I'm not getting the response, I'm going to go, okay, you may have similar genetics to me. Take a high-dose choline supplement, see what happens. And it usually resolves everything. And they go, I feel great. I go, okay, we know you've got similar genetics to me. It's that simple. It's not complicated. But I usually basically do choline and taurine and L-citrulline which is my vasodilator, because I did have cardiovascular disease 11 years ago, so I still do it. Now, there's another side benefit to that. 30 minutes before, let's say, hanky-panky, it does give you a Viagra type effect. So, yes, don't take too much because it's contraindicated. You just need a gram or two, depending on what your age is. So, yeah, but in general, no. You should be able to get away with just a standard carnivore diet. Most people can, So, and with good vitamin D status, you will pull in, even from meat, without eating any dairy whatsoever. If you're dairy intolerant, any dairy, whatever, you will pull in basically calcium. Actually, when protein goes up, calcium goes up intake. They've actually done the studies. So it's a non-issue for people who are carnivorous. Otherwise, the Inuit would have had brittle bones a long time ago, multi-generational carnivores. So irrelevant, pretty much most of that sort of stuff. And they didn't eat a lot of organ meats. They just ate basically muscle meats primarily. Used to throw the organ meats to the dogs. So, but if somebody comes from a kibble eating diet and they are very deficient, I may put them on organ meats for a couple of months in order to bring their deficiencies to arrest their deficiencies, especially if they've got MS or ALS or something like that. Yep, definitely. And if you can tolerate dairy, that's fine. It's great. It's a great source of riboflavin. And the only vitamin that we actually require in large amounts on a carnivore diet or an animal-based diet is riboflavin. Meats and dairy are very high. Particular dairy is higher than meat, but meat is quite high as well in that regard. Basically, for 3.5 ounces of meat, you'll get a large, on most meats, you'll get probably 4 ounces, you'll get pretty much your nearly daily dose of riboflavin. A glass of milk will definitely give it to you. So you can very much get that. And that's the only vitamin that we really need very high, but animal foods are very high in riboflavin. And also those people who've got an MTHFR gene, I've done a video on that showing a dose-dependent mechanistic study. This is not woo-woo epidemiology. Oh, I had this. How did you feel? Can you fill out a questionnaire and tell me your bullshit so I can actually put it in my data as bullshit data so I can pump out some fabricated bullshit? That's what epidemiology is. But when you basically do a clinical proper study and you look at dose dependence, we know that when somebody's got an MTHFR, the 677 SNP, which I've got, you can have high homocysteine levels. Well, when you actually give people a riboflavin supplement, what happens is it corrects that enzyme. It upregulates the enzyme. You don't need more folate and you don't need more B12. You just need more riboflavin to basically correct the enzyme. So it's like it says you need more animal foods to get more riboflavin in order to correct this. Because if you give the person more folate, like all the naturopaths do, you cause a B12 deficiency and a pernicious anemia to the person. So you're not healing the person, you're making things worse. So you may momentarily correct a bit of their homocysteine level and bring it down a bit, but then you've created a new problem. Oh, let's give them another supplement. As I said, naturopaths are pushing supplements. MDs, allopathics, they push drugs like statins and other things like that. They're in the same business. You just need to eat a bloody steak and some dairy if you can tolerate it. Not complicated, Ricky. It depends. Look, I have never recommended retinol I've always recommended cod liver oil from Rosita, which is a company out of Norway, which does it the traditional way. That's the only stuff, or you're getting it from fat, from the animal fats or livers or stuff like that, or eggs. I do not recommend supplementation. Never have. So even retinol, even cod liver oil is an actual food. It's actually an extracted part of a food in a traditional way. Only that source. Otherwise, I recommend people, consume like pate, Liver pate as another option to get retinol, eggs, another option to get retinol, and more animal fats. You do not have to supplement at all. I do not. I have zero recommendation on retinol supplementation. I consider it just as bad as omega-3 supplementation. Very poorly produced with too many issues associated with it. So completely should be removed in that regard. Never use stuff like that. Please do not. Yep. It does help with gut health. It helps with a lot of things. I need to do a comprehensive video on taurine. It does so much work in the gut, the brain, all the organs. It acts as an antioxidant, it acts as an antifibrotic thing, breaks down fibrosis in tissue. It improves the functioning of all sorts of things. It works synergistically with fat-soluble vitamins to reduce the problems with matrix metalloproteinases, MMPs. It does so many things. It's an incredible substance, and it's in animal foods. And it's so important for the immune system as well. It's fantastic stuff. Absolutely fantastic stuff. It's one of those sulfur amino acids that is so important in detoxification as well. You name it, it does it. It's fantastic stuff and works synergistically with choline in the brain to deal with beta amyloid. So eating an egg and eating a steak really is good for the brain. Who would have known? Yes. Funny, isn't it? So, yes, right. But I need to, I still haven't done my Alzheimer's and dementia video yet. It's going to happen, but when you've got a day job, it's really hard. It's all in folders and, but I'll get around it eventually. This year, a lot of this sort of stuff's going to be done this year. I've decided I'm going to get all this stuff done. By the end of the year, most of the stuff that you guys have been waiting for have been produced within that year. So next year is going to be one of those fantastic years in terms of Harry going into all these different areas and new protocols and stuff like that. So there'll be a lot of information. You'll have to wait for it, but it'll be a doozy. You'll really enjoy the stuff. So anyway, yep. Yep. Yeah. And, when we were talking about LPS, lipopolysaccharides, for endotoxin in that regard, we're actually also talking about gut permeability. And vitamin D is very important for gut permeability, but also things in the carnivore diet that actually increase DAO to improve those gut better and reduce histamines as well in the system. All these sort of things are working synergistically. You do need some histamine. It actually has a lot of benefits to the body, but it needs to be regulated. Like anything, if it's out of whack, it's a problem. Like uric acid is a potent antioxidant, very important for the body, does a whole lot of important functions in the body. But throw fructose in it and derange it, and then you could end up with gout and other things like that, where it indirectly contributes, but not directly. But, the problem is people always blame in a reductionist way the wrong thing rather than actually understanding that what's really happening is a derangement of the system. When you derange the system, it's like, like basically the cholesterol myth. Cholesterol is basically, is basically the stuff that's all your tissue is built of. Every single cell in your body requires cholesterol. How can it be bad? It's a waxy material. It can't oxidize. It's nonsense. It's only the PUFA in a esterified way That means when the 3 fatty acids that come from seed oils, which are toxic, damaged, they connect to, molecules of basically cholesterol and create an esterified cholesterol. That esterified cholesterol is the problem. That, and it's the fatty acids that are coming from seed oils that are rancid and toxic and damaged that are going to be reacting with other tissue and causing problems and inflammation and causing basically systemic inflammation and also causing a lot of peroxidation, lipid peroxidation as it's called. It's called lipid peroxidation because it's coming from lipids that are damaged. It's been known for years, but it's a crazy world we live in. Yes, and a carnivore diet has all those benefits because it's actually putting stuff that's coming from the fat of animals, which is in a matrix and protected and stable and doesn't have these, it's not extracted through an industrial system with full of aldehydes and whatever other chemicals they've fucking put in there, that makes it just absolute a milieu of sort of toxic shit. Exactly. Would guess that tallow eggs yolks are the best for youthful looks. Yep, something about it. Replete fat pads are programmed to disappear by the end of one's 20s. Yeah, look, it's these sort of foods are really good in that regard. Yep, I think eggs are great nutrients. It's a full whole animal in a sense. Yes, especially for us middle-aged and slightly older. It literally falls off the cliff. Look, the body doesn't synthesize enough even for young people. Doesn't synthesize. But young people are still more robust. They can do more. And the reason why they can produce more is because they've got mitochondrial density. Once the mitochondrial density has been damaged from a kibble diet and seed oils and everything else, and they've got reduced mitochondrial density with age, your capacity to produce endogenously declines with age, they say. Now, I've never seen a study to look at tribal people and what their production endogenously of taurine is. So we're only basing our assumptions on that these things happen, but it's a problem. Your thymus, which is your main defense system, shrinks without taurine. Biosynthesis falls. I think the body just considers it a less priority. Goes, I need to keep the brain and the your kidneys and your heart and your liver going, and I'm going to prioritize those like a triage. And taurine synthesis is less of a priority, so it drops it. It says just eat it because I've got other things to do. And so, yes, if you want to basically maintain good cellular health, you definitely need taurine supplementation, especially people like us that have gone through the ringer and have a lot of historical damage. And we're not like, you saw those old people that Mary, one old lady was over, 120 odd, I think it was, and she was jumping up and down. I mean, that woman has been in a natural environment, earthing herself and basically, eating species appropriate food. Why would she have any problem? 80-year-old running up a hillside, and Mary couldn't keep up, and she's in her mid-40s. She's 10 years younger than me. That tells you something. Slightly, or is it 11 or 12? Anyway, but she's younger than me, but she couldn't keep up because she doesn't have the mitochondrial density. So she can't produce a lot of these things anymore. So sometimes in old age, yes, we need to probably consume a bit more taurine, stuff like that, because we just can't synthesize it. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality of our situation. We need to use fisetin to try and knock off all the senescent cells as much as possible over time, because those senescent cells produce inflammatory cytokines, which actually do more damage. And it's a question of how long you survive on this planet, a question of it's a war between, probably the word war isn't there. It's a competition between, repair and damage. And damage is always winning compared to repair. So if you can help repair by giving it taurine, giving it choline, giving it these things, what you do is you reduce the body's requirements to produce this stuff, to synthesize this stuff. Taurine is synthesized from methionine and cysteine. Well, you could use that for other purposes, produce more more choline, and then choline, more folate or other things. You can use it for other purposes. So you can save yourself a lot of long-term health problems. G'day, Bo. Good to see you. Merry Christmas to you as well. Yes. Yes. Good stuff. But don't go very high on the niacin. Remember, no more than 300 milligrams. I take 100 milligrams. I usually say to tablets, and the rest get it from food. Do not consume more than that. These high doses, they're just stupid. People that do that are going to cause themselves a lot of problems in the long run. Fisetin, always restricted to the amount of time. I'm going to do another one on, I'm doing some tests currently to see the issues, and I've talked to people that have had different sort of related symptoms and stuff like that, both positive and some, and I'm going to make a new video with some slightly different protocol in that regard. But yes, it is good. Taurine, yep. These are the things, that I focus on. It's not complicated in that regard. Yeah, deuterium depletion is a big one. Yeah, really important that we keep deuterium levels down for most of the year if we want good mitochondrial health. Absolutely critical. Yeah, it does. Actually, it does. Well, it's an osmolyte, so it balances out the electrolytes. So that's why it eliminates, since I've been taking taurine as well, no cramping, no nothing. That's it. And also with sleep, it increases GABA, which basically calms the mind. So it's great for calming the mind in that regard. Yes. And that young lady that you're looking after, I hope you've got her on taurine as well. Yes. And I'll have all the information by next year in terms of all those other issues with the supplements and stuff like that. So we'll sort all that out, and I'll be doing a video as well. So they'll get all sorted out next year. So look forward to that. But all the other stuff, keep at it. Pretty much, my dear, keep at it. Anyway, yep. Yep, it definitely improves body composition. Definitely does. Carnivore diet. Yeah, he'd love it. Your dad would love it. He'd basically get a second wind of life. He'd be much better. Or another option for anyone based in Sydney wants some carnivore consulting, health, etc. Yeah, Paul Mason. That's right. Yeah, if they are there, you're right, Michael. I saw him at his clinic about a month ago, and he was really helpful. Yep. Yeah. I always, if you're in Sydney, you're living in Sydney, definitely go and see Paul Mason. He's really a good physician. I've got a lot of respect for him. He's part of our community, and he understands the nuances, and he's not into the sort of bullshit sort of stuff. Yes. Thank you. Yep. Thanks for reminding me, Michael. Yep. As I said, the ultimate thing is I want people to basically sort out any health problems they've got, get better, get healthier. Okay. Yeah. Look, I don't know what different countries. You probably got some countries. Yeah, it depends on the car model and all that. Yep. That's true. And it depends on the country as well, because some countries have had like mixed fuels for some time, or some states in some parts of the world. So that's, it really depends on all that sort of stuff as well. Yeah, it's varied. You've got to do your research basically about your own country and your own vehicle, in a sense. Well put. Yep. I was just talking in general, but not accurately, but just in general. So thanks for that, Derby. And it's not my expertise anyway, so you shouldn't be listening to me anyway. Yes, it's a mad, mad world, Robbie. Mad, bloody world. Yes, world's gone mad. Very, very much. Oh, definitely they're not. No requirement for brains. Yes. As they go. Morons rule. Yes. Do you think Sean Baker consuming about 400 grams of protein per day is that allows him to work out so extensively? He said he's consuming 24 eggs and 2.5 pounds of ribeye per day right now. Okay. Let me just... How tall is he? How big is he? Because I think he's a quite big bloke. He's well over 6 foot. He's a big, big bloke. So it does make a difference. 24 times 6.2, 148.8. Just doing the eggs. 2.5. .5 divided by that. And about 20. I think it's about 25. 25. Let me just do that again. I'm confusing myself. Okay. Times. Yep. So he's doing about, if he's doing that, he's doing about 430 in that regard, grams. Now, I'll give you an example. The sand, and this is the Samburu, or the sand people, the Bushmen of the Kalahari. They do, on average, sometimes they do more, 3.92 grams per kilo of body weight. Okay? So I don't know what his weight is. Does anybody know his weight? Because those guys are about 70 kilos, which is 54 pounds. And so, they're doing about 274.4 grams. So 274.4. So they're doing about 63% of what Sean is doing. But they are much smaller. You've seen them. Samburu are about, 70 kilos, much smaller guys and all that. So he's doing about nearly a third more, but he's a bigger bloke. He's a much bigger bloke. So it's not a problem. And they've actually done experiments. Have you, Spencer, where have you been? Have you looked at my video that I've done on basically the kidneys and high protein? You should take a look at that. Google Harry Serpanos, high protein or kidneys. Just Harry Serpanos kidneys, and it'll come up with a high protein one. Will it damage your kidneys? And here's a rat, and that we're talking an omnivore, not a carnivore, being put on 70% of the nutrients that it's consuming, the food that it's consuming. 70% is coming from protein. And all you do is get a big fucking rat with big kidneys. And the bigger your kidneys, usually kidney disease is atrophy of kidneys, not bigger kidneys. Healthy, bigger kidneys. That's all it does. When you eat more meat, you grow bigger, healthier kidneys that are more robust. It's actually healthier for you. It's a natural way. These anemic, shrinking kidneys, like your thymus and many other things, not a good thing when your organs are shrinking. It basically means it's very unhealthy. Your body can't do as much as it could with bigger. So, no, not a problem at all. Especially when these guys, you've seen the sand people of the Kalahari, the Bushmen, these thin little blokes, they're eating 2/3 of what he's eating. He's eating only a third more. And he's a big bloke, well over 6 foot, nearly getting, I think, 6.5 foot or whatever. And big bloke. He's probably just getting enough to maintain that tissue, because he's probably double, their size. So is he eating so much? I don't think so. It's probably just getting enough to maintain all that tissue, because he's a big bloke. It's not some, little. These guys are basically, they're not even big muscular. They don't do weightlifting, these guys. They're just very ripped and slim at 70 kilos, and you can see them, but they're quite skinny and all that, and they're doing 3.92 grams per kilo body weight on average, sometimes even more. So, no, as long as you don't have carbs in there and they don't have any carbs in there, you're not causing any glycation of the proteins or any issue. And he doesn't do. He's very strict. If you're going to do that at level of protein, you better keep it strict. If you don't, that's when you get into trouble, like a lot of the bodybuilders throw in a whole lot of rice and other sugar and stuff like that. That's what causes a lot of their problems. So that's a different situation altogether. Yes. Don't forget Luke. No, that's more on Lukey's stuff. Yes, very much so. Yes, exactly. So Shell, you're basically another Jabba the Hutt bigot, I notice. Yes. So you won't be inviting Jabba the Hutt around to your place this Christmas. Yes. Very unchristian of you. Anyway, let's move on beyond the frivolities. Never proven to work. Unless they hold you down and force him on you. Oh, that would be ugly. He's a slimy little thing. Big thing. You should post your controversial content on Rumble. Yeah, probably. Yes. Look, I've got a day job. That's a problem, Robbie. I've got a day job and I can't actually run shitloads of social media. I'm going to, after Christmas, I'm going to try and see whether I can set up a few other things and try and direct some traffic from other sources and that sort of stuff. But yeah, I know what you mean. We shouldn't have to put up with this bullshit. That's the reality. So, yes. G'day, Jared. Just noticed you in there. Oh, Baker's 6'4" or so. Okay, so he's a big bloody boy if he's that big in that regard. Yeah, he's way bigger than any of the sand people. They're quite average size. One, we're talking about 5 foot something, 5'5", that sort of stuff, 5'6". He's way above their sort of size in that regard. And they are doing very high in that regard. So, no, definitely not an issue. Never found anywhere. Thanks, that Jared. I just noticed. And Merry Christmas to you, mate. Yeah, so yeah, I know, Robbie. There's a lot of different options, but the biggest problem with you'd have to re-establish a big following again. I don't know whether everyone would follow across to basically something different other than YouTube. It's sort of so ubiquitous at the moment. I'm just hoping some of the other channels start growing a bit because they're still too small. Yeah, Ethiopia's a huge war now. Yeah, exactly. After this will rebuild itself. It's insane, the sheer amount of fertile land there. Can be a breadbasket of the continent. Yeah, look, they have been for many years. I've known from their historical and all that. It's just basically it's a very volatile area of the world and a lot of friction and all that between a lot of the countries around the region. Very unstable. And you've got on your borders to the north, southern Sudan, which is very unstable, and then on the other side, you've basically got Somalia, which is another very unstable part of the world. So yeah, it's not an easy situation in that regard. Probably the only people that peacefully move between all those regions and don't cause anybody any grief are the Afars, which are just basically nomads with camels. Yes, probably the only people that basically everybody leaves alone and they leave everyone alone as well. Yes. I think a few Afars have moved into Djibouti nowadays, have become city dwellers, a few of them, but not many of them. It's sort of a mixed amount. Yes, I know. There's a lot of options out there. I do have one on Odyssey, but I haven't kept it up to date. The biggest problem is, I struggle to load things on YouTube, let alone try to basically maintain. If somebody could come up with an application that I could load simultaneously on all these damn things, or if anybody knows of an application that can do it, I'll do it. But if I have to physically actually upload to every single one of them, it's not going to be done. It's just not doable. It's not practical. Unless you're actually full-time, like, Bart or other people that are Tristan and many others that are full-time and they've got the time to basically do it. But if you're actually doing you're working through the week in general to maintain so many different things, it's just not practical. Believe me, it isn't. I tried with Odyssey and all that and I realized I just could not keep up the content. I need to... If somebody knows of any application that it can actually load automatically on all these things, so when I actually try and upload, I can go through the application upload to YouTube, to Odyssey, to all these different things. Please let me know, because that would be... Then I'd do it. I'd have no excuse then. I'd do it because it would be simple. It'd be one upload on all these different platforms. I haven't come across anything myself, but if anybody does know, and if they're not sure and they do come across anything, please let me know. Email me. I'd love to know. So, exactly. Anyway. And yes. Exactly. Depending on what you're trying to achieve, if somebody's very lean and all that, I usually tell them, make sure you're prioritizing a 1-to-1 fat to protein. Or if you're going to do a higher protein because you want to build more muscle, don't neglect the fat, because you'll end up with rabbit starvation issues and stuff like that because you don't have enough fat storage. So it depends on the circumstances. Now, some people, one person said, well, if I'm really lean, I can't put on much fat, and when I do a high protein, I don't feel that great. I've told them to basically use cream, which is like, well, it's liquid fat. Very easy to get fat into you with cream. So that's an option, and that person used cream and realized, I can get a lot of energy this way, and without having to worry about low fat stores. So, younger person, obviously, my younger, because I usually have people from the younger 20-year-old bracket. About a quarter of them are in that younger group. The other quarter is slightly, older than that. And then there's a sort of middle-aged one, and then there's the older bracket. And they're all in about a quarter each, which is really interesting that my subscriber list is a quarter. Anyway, that's fine. So I cater for all, from very young people to very old people. So it's very interesting in that regard. And yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, I think so anyway. That's my opinion. I do have a lot of conversations with older people, and I do get on with very young people as well. So I think you can pigeonhole yourself into an age bracket, or you can step outside that age bracket and have interaction with people that are wiser than you, that are older, and younger than you, that have got new ideas and new ways of thinking about the world and things. So I think it's important to be able to navigate the full spectrum of humanity, in a sense. You get more out of it. Doesn't mean you're going to get a lot of wisdom necessarily, but at least you get an understanding of what other people are thinking beyond your just immediate circle or people that are around you. Yes. So I've had some interesting conversations with young people, and I've just sat and listened. I haven't been critical or trying to tell them, oh, don't do that or whatever. No. Just listen. You'll learn far more by just listening. And if they want to ask you about something, they'll ask you about something, and then you can give your opinion. You get far more traction that way, believe me. Yes. Anyway, Merry Christmas, Harry. Yes, Devox. Yes, likewise. He questioned the old school, like Novavax, do not need to isolate to make it. They've done that. Yes, they have. They've basically, remember, all the actual things have been genotyped. They actually had to genotype it very thoroughly, the actual company, because remember, they actually had to mutate the actual protein. So the actual bond in the spike didn't actually cleave off. They didn't want that cleaving off, which is good because you don't get a lot of spike particles moving throughout your system. It remains stable. So they actually deliberately mutated that part. So they had to know exactly the genetics. So yes, all of the companies have done the genetics. They know exactly what they are, all the strains that they're actually dealing with when they were using the specific types or whatever. So that's well known. I know a lot of people are saying absolute nonsense out there, but yeah, all of it's been genotyped, sequenced. They know exactly what they're dealing with, and they had to, and some of them, like Novavax, modified that part. They also had to know exactly what the morphology, so they had to work out how to basically prevent it from going inside the cell. So it can actually still connect to the ACE2 receptor, but it can't go inside. So if it does, you're not aspirated properly, and it does end up in the bloodstream, it can't go inside the cell. So it'll still be cleared out of the system very easily. They had to know exactly, in order to be able to work, what could they use, and then they worked out, well, at that location, those protein structures, we can use proline. So they had to know it to be able to know exactly how to prevent it from going. You know what I mean? So yes, we're quite smart in that regard. I mean, let's not forget, we've got electron tunneling microscopes, and we've had them for ages, where we can move single atoms. So do you think we can't actually see viruses with the technology we have? Are you joking me? We can actually see single atoms and move them. So No, our technology is very far. The biggest problem is that we can't create nanomachines. And the reason for that is we can't construct, because a virus is something like a nanomachine, but a natural one. We can't create something equivalent. Why? Because of the electrical sort of, the electrostatic sort of interactions. Even we struggle making like hard drives. What do you think we've moved away from hard drives to solid state hard drives? Simple, because the hard drives, we actually had to do them, put them on an angle in order to reduce the electrons bleeding across. So, the problem is when you get too small, you can't, where a lot of non-organic matter has a lot of, this electron bouncing all over the place. Inorganic matter, the way it's designed, seems to have can maintain sort of like a neutral effect. We can't mimic that neutrality in terms of the electrical states. We can't actually do that in something inorganic. We don't really know how to do it, how to sort those. These are fundamental problems of basically engineering at that nanoscale. And we just really can't work it out. And that's why when I hear people say, oh, they created these things, and I'm going, you guys don't understand modern engineering. That's why you believe this sort of nonsense about, little nano things being created by people. No, it's impossible. That's why we can't actually manufacture certain things, and why we're even looking at moving away from, due to Moore's law, moving away from digital systems in considering even sort of analog computers, which come from antiquity, but sort of moving in that direction at some stage and creating a sort of a hybrid type system. So, yeah. So there's a lot of that people, probably the thing that worries me more than anything that keeps me up awake at night, if there's anything, is the advancement of potential analog computers. Because analog computers, or analog computing, is the way our brain works in this simulation way. And that worries me, that some people are even talking about AIs using this sort of technology in the long run. While now it's not the problem, maybe in 50, 60 years, it could be a problem. I may be dead by then, but the humans that are going to be around then could be a big problem. What's the motivation? So that is what worries me the most, especially this misanthropic, this sort of post-human philosophy and thinking. These are the things that keep me up at night and worry me more than anything else. But at the moment, no, the capacity to do those sort of things is beyond humanity's ability. But we can do quite a lot of things. We're pretty cluey, and we do know what we do. Yeah, without being able to sequence something and isolate it and sequence it, you would not be able to create a vaccine for it. It'd just be impossible. So that's why when somebody says, "Oh, you're not isolated," I go, "Are you daft? If you don't know something, it's like something I've never seen something. I'm going to create it out of nothing." I mean, you've got to be really loose in the head to believe that. You have to isolate them. You have to sequence the genetics in order to produce the damn thing. So, yeah, it never made sense to me how people could think in that way. But anyway, I can understand non-scientists or people that don't have any. But when people that do have some background start talking like this, I'm going, what's their motivation? So I even know one person, which I won't mention their name, but I know one person that deliberately goes on social media and just likes taking the piss out of people. Actually has told me, I actually put out misinformation just deliberately, just to have a laugh at and just make nonsense, and people believe it. I go, why? He says, I just enjoy to have fun doing it. I'm going, I just shake my head and walk away. But, there are people that like doing that. There are people that have notoriety issues, that have low esteems and need to basically feel that they're getting all these clicks. a lot of people are a bit like that. Maybe they need to get themselves checked out, but they enjoy basically creating controversy because they'll get a lot of clicks, which means that they'll get all these dopamine hits. Usually happens amongst young people, but they get this enjoyment. It's like an addiction, So you've got to be careful what is the motivation of people. What is driving them? Is it money? Is it clickbait? Like just this. Are they just psychopaths that just find enjoyment in seeing other people suffer? Or misinforming them and having them running around like lunatics? There are a whole lot of motivations. There are a lot of people out there that have got a lot of different motivations why they do those sort of things. So you've got to be very careful. That's why I always come back to the core science. What does the core science show us and doesn't show us? Rather than speculating. Very easy to fall into crackpottery, as I've said. Very, very easy. Yes. Yes, exactly. Nothing like a Marshall Plan. Yes, that one. Exactly. Thank you, Spencer. Yes, Turkey's looking to exploit the agricultural output, considering that there are those in major recession. Yes, exactly. I wouldn't trust them. They're just trying to rebuild their Ottoman Empire at the expense of many other countries. So I hope your leaders are not too foolish like some have been and have been used and abused. So some of the Arabs are waking up. So, yes, their policies are definitely not in the right vein. There are people in the country that basically have a different view, and I hope they win and get rid of these people. But unfortunately, even the opposition has got some really dangerous ideas. So I don't know how long it's going to take before they move away from this empire building notion at the expense of everyone else. So that's what their ruling class currently has in their mind, and that's what they're brainwashing a lot of their population. Some people out there that are good, that basically realise this and realise how wrong it is, but the majority of people are just basically sheep following the rules and following the agenda of their elites to rebuild the Ottoman Empire through not directly conquering, but through satellite states that they've got influence and control over. Yes, that's what they used the Brotherhood for. And America thought they could use Turkey to use the Brotherhood to control the Arab world. And then they realized Turkey had a different agenda. That's why the friendship broke up. And that's why America now is supporting the current regimes, even though it wouldn't traditionally do that because they've got no option, because they don't want the Brotherhood taking over and them losing complete influence over those countries. So, yes, that's where the little issue happened. And basically, the Turkish elites have been developing this policy of rebuilding the Ottoman Empire since 1956, when one of their key people actually put out a big report about the geopolitics of the country. And not many have read it. A lot of Greeks have, and I'm disappointed that the Greeks haven't made it public, translated it into English. They translated from Turkish to Greek, but never got around translating into other languages and letting other people know what their plans were. So not many people have ever read this report. But the reality is that was the pursuit. The only difference is Erdogan, who's a megalomaniac and basically has got an ego beyond any. He sort of thinks he's the new sultan, basically. Yeah, he's basically made a lot of this public, so that's what actually made the Americans realize that there's a different agenda, and they just got sucked in and got basically spat out. They basically got manipulated. Problem with the Americans, as I said, they're not like the old colonial powers of Britain and France. They are basically, as I said, when it comes to geopolitics, they're hillbillies. They just don't get it. They don't understand these populations, and they think just because they talk nice to you that they're friendly. No, they got something, an agenda. They want to get something out of you. And the Americans always learn the hard way over and over again. And that's the unfortunate things. It's easy, I say to the Americans, stop supporting regimes that are not like you. There's only 3 stable democracies in the Eastern Mediterranean. They're called Greece, Cyprus, and Israel. All the other countries are sort of cannot be classified as democracies or populations that have got a similar view. I mean, the population's got the closest mentality, believes in small government and doesn't trust government. It is very similar to the American population, is the Greeks, the only population that has a similarity in that regard. I mean, when America freed itself from the British, they actually thought about changing their language. They actually thought of adopting Greek as their language, as the official language of America. If they had done that, the Americans today would be speaking Greek, not English. So it'd be an American Greek sort of language. That's what the founding fathers actually thought. They actually saw synergies. I mean, they actually even sold Greece one of their best ships, which really helped the Greek Navy basically defeat a lot of the Ottoman Navy. And the Ottomans actually found out about it, and they actually sent their agents to try and purchase it off the American company at a much higher price. But the American industrialist said no, because he had grown up in that tradition. If you take a look at all the actual, like even the societies in the universities, they all got these Greek letters. It was very, I mean, now in the modern era, that is, nobody really knows the roots of this. But if you go way back to the early stages, there was a lot of, with the rebels fighting against the Ottoman Empire, there was a strong support from a lot of Americans at the time. So there was a lot of connection. They were supporting the rebellion against the Ottoman Empire by the Greeks at the time, and were providing them with support as well. So we've had a strong, close. Unfortunately, in more recent years, politicians since the Second World War have basically been more interested in trying to be friends to everyone and have influence by, through influence, control and all that. But they don't realise that, you really need to back your friends, because at the end of the day, the only people that have got your back are your friends, not these other countries that may be your friends today, but may be your enemies tomorrow. And I would say even for the Ethiopians, they need to, be very careful with whom let's say they have relationships, because they may find themselves on the receiving end in the long run. So, yes, ask the Libyans. Do you think eggs, dairy allergies are because vaccines are just poor gut health bacteria? Yeah, it's just all poor gut health bacteria. Nothing to do with vaccines. Absolutely nothing to do with them. So, because a vaccine is just a deactivated form of the virus. We have billions and millions of viruses going into us all the time. So, no, had no issue whatsoever. I know there's a lot of nonsense out there, but as I say to those people, show me the evidence. I can show you historical populations even today that actually get vaccinations of different sorts and have no issues, because they don't have a kibble diet in their societies. So traditional stuff, not an issue. It's just a deactivated form. All it's doing is saying to the body, I'm presenting here, rather than getting the actual full-blown virus, saying, I'm presenting myself, this is what I am, and saying, cred. The only issue with vaccines, I've always said, that for coronas, that is primarily. For all the others, you can get innate immunity. Now, we don't know why with coronas, well, we do sort of. The reason why with coronas we can't is because basically when you actually provide a corona type, for whatever reason, the body seems to just produce antibodies, but doesn't really create a strong like T cell response. I have no idea why, and nobody does. But we know with coronavirus, like the common cold, the flu and all that, you don't get this T cell activation, strong activation. And that's probably why those vaccines don't really work. Where with the other ones, yes, they do. They can give you lifetime immunity. So It may be the protein structures, the way they interact with that part of the immune system, with the T cells. Not really sure. Look, we still don't know a lot of things. There is still a lot of complexity in biology, which we still don't understand. The complex interactions between viruses, protozoa, bacteria in the body. They're constantly competing and interacting in our body in very complicated ways. As I said, the majority don't cause us any problems because they can't use our receptor sites. So we may get certain ones from dogs or cats or whatever, other animals and stuff like that. And they don't cause us any issues because they can't replicate. They usually end up, because they can't infect us, they usually end up infecting bacteria. And some viruses can even infect other viruses. I know it's crazy. There are what are called large viruses. These large viruses are like, they're like living organisms nearly. It's a grey area, virology. It's a grey area. But those really large ones can be infected. So they're a very interesting sort of beastie in that regard. So, it's usually gut permeability. You're really talking about poor diet, poor vitamin D status, all these sort of things. The clearance, the rapid clearance out of the system is T lymphocytes. If you want to clear things out really fast, and they can get inside cells, they can clear things out, which really means the sun and a steak, because taurine and vitamin D are the two things that are there are other things, zinc and a whole lot of other things, but the two most critical things for good T cell, that means your frontline defense that can stop everything, is that. So if you've got 80 nanograms per deciliter, your vitamin D status, and you really got good intake of animal foods and really good high levels of taurine intake, pretty much you should be immune to most viruses, practically, viruses and bacterial and all sorts of infections, because that's what indigenous populations are. That's the reality. We only need these sort of things because today we're not. Most of us are compromised because of kibble eating. That's the reason. But traditionally, humans, once they moved into agriculture, like the early civilizations, that's when we started seeing viruses, bacteria, and all these things causing health problems. You don't really see it in tribal populations like the Maasai, like the Inuit, these tribal populations. But you do see it in people that start living in cities, city dwellers, and kibble eaters. The more kibble you eat, the more vulnerable you are. So yes, I would say, species inappropriate foods are probably the biggest thing to gut problems, and also to the way our bodies, how robust they are with viruses and stuff like that. So the general population, which is kibble eating, probably need some of these traditional vaccines because that's the only protection that they have got. The rest of us that basically have non-kibble eating, got the sun, the salt, and the meat, we probably don't need them because our bodies are more robust, especially if they're in a good state, more robust to defend themselves against these pathogens in the environment. So it really fundamentally depends on, those differences. So, I'm not against that stuff, but but basically, if somebody says I don't want to take one, that's fine. I've got no problems. It's not my body. But would I say that somebody that's on a kibble diet shouldn't take an MMR or something like that? Probably not, because they'd be putting themselves at risk because they are not as robust in defending themselves because they're not on a species appropriate diet. So it really depends on the circumstances of different people. So let me just go to Lemmy because he's actually... Oops. This is the problem with this one here. Oops. Is that going to work? No, it's... Okay, now it's working. Thanks, mate. God became man, so man could become God. Love your work, H. Yes. We don't become gods, we become godlike. That means in the footsteps of God. Just to clarify that. That's what apotheosis means, that we become more godlike. But yes, I know what you mean. Anyway, thank you, Lemmy, and and God bless to you, and Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to your mate as well. Now, need to find my spot. Wasn't expecting to talk geopolitics today. Well, there you go. Oh, well, I usually don't get in. I usually have these conversations on my Zoom stream. I should keep them there because this is, after all, a nutritional channel in that regard. Yes. Anyway, I believe choline supremacy. Me too. I need it. Yes. Praise the gods of choline. Yippee. Yeah, look, that's... Let me just cover that. Oops. That one. Yes, in the last 30 years. Guess what we've actually been putting more in our diet? More carbohydrates, refined carbohydrates. But it's not only that, glyphosate. Glyphosate levels in the food supply have gone up massively in the last 30 years. And glyphosate is a antibiotic mimicking thing. They've actually even got a patent. It's not Harry saying it. Monsanto's, before they got bought by Bayer, Monsanto's has a patent, which is owned by Bayer now, as an antibiotic. So basically, glyphosate as an antibiotic is endemic today. Just think of it. All your councils are basically spraying with Roundup, which is glyphosate. That's what it's called in Australia, Roundup. They're spraying around the neighbourhoods with glyphosate. Roundup in Australia and New Zealand and a few other places, they call it Roundup. It's the same stuff. So they're spraying everywhere. So basically, little kids and everyone else is inhaling this stuff as they move around the environment. So you're taking it in. You're basically breathing it in. Then, so even if you're a carnivore, you can't escape it. Then you've basically got a whole lot of people eating a lot of foods that are drenched in the stuff. It's endemic within our society, and a lot of people, ignorant people, are spraying it around their gardens, in their homes, around their homes as well. They're poisoning themselves. So a lot of this sort of stuff is getting into the bodies of humans, and it's creating, in the last 30 years, a lot of gut microbiome issues. That's where a lot of this sort of stuff's coming from. A lot of the pathogens don't get affected as much. Lactobacillus has been nearly obliterated in many people's guts. Then when you're looking at things like that, if it wasn't for the dairy and stuff like that they consume, they'd never have any at all. And then you've basically got things like Bifidobacteria infantis has pretty much been eliminated in 90% of the population. Those Dietary strains that we talked about earlier, that also has been eliminated down to about 90+%. I can't remember the exact percent in most countries. And they are the ones, and this is why SIBO is escalating at the moment. It's about a third of the population in America, it's believed, it could be higher, that have got SIBO symptoms or SIBO-like symptoms. Again, similar reasons. All the pathogens are basically out of control. You don't have those Dietary, the Bifidobacteria infantis, and a lot of the acid-loving lactobacillus, which you get when you come out of your mummy's tummy, out of the birth canal. When you come out of there, you get coated with lactobacillus. That is what protects you against these pathogenics, and also cleanses the small intestine. It's your best protection, what you get from mummy, against SIBO. When you lose that, then you've got problems. Then you need to basically, try and get it out of your system. Taurine helps and stuff like that does, to and other methylators to try and get it out of your system. But at the same time, you need to basically restore a lot of the gut microbiome. That takes time. It's a fucking hassle. I've dealt with a number of people that have gone from sheer diarrhea like Necro Kitty right across to, constipation, then she's on a protocol now to try and get to restore that stuff back in. So it's a problem. And we need these other two to basically, which are very important because they work with the other beneficial bacteria, but they also are like top-end cleansers. And I'm going to make a video next year and where you can get it and stuff like that, the other strain, so we can actually combine the two together because they work much better. So we've got a more comprehensive type approach to dealing with these problems because they're going to escalate. There's going to be half the American population eventually will have to, whether they like it or not, will have to follow the protocol that I'll develop next year in order to cleanse themselves. And you guys are going to have to get it around to a lot of these people so they know how to fix their guts, because it's going to become a horrendous situation in the future, So most people just basically, they feel weak, sickly, they feel, and they just think that's normal. And they've been feeling like that for a long time. I mean, you guys really know that because when you change your ways, you realize, I can feel differently. Exactly. They've never felt any different for multiple years, and so they don't know what difference is. Yes, unfortunately, that is the reality. Anyway, I was planning to go for 1 hour and then 2 hours, I said, and now we're 2.5 hours. What's new? At least I'm consistent, I always go beyond the mark in that regard. Yes, can't help myself. Zombie's here as well. Merry Christmas to you as well, Zombie. Just notice you. Anyway, yes, I'm that behind. Yeah, what's new? This pom-pom getting in the way. Oh, God. It's probably what it is. I blame the pom-pom for falling behind, that is. Anyway, cut your playful behaviour. Become more serious, boy. Nah, never going to happen. Can't help myself. Yes. More comments by everyone else. Nothing like a bit of science. Yes. Yeah, it definitely is. Heart is much better. High in coenzyme Q10. Very important for your electron chain in your mitochondria. So, yes, definitely much better. I do stuff with... I prefer actually getting... If I'm going to get any organ meat, getting minced meats of heart, and then getting some other minced meat and combining it. So 1/3 of heart and 2/3 of muscle meats. Study found aging bone loss, which occurred in populations earlier onset, greater intensity in Eskimos' nutritional factor, high protein, high nitrogen, high phosphorus. Actually, it was associational. It was wrong. It was basically wrong. Spencer, it was actually wrong. So I've already showed that information, and so does Paul Mason and a number of other people, and it was actually wrong. When you do a clinical study, that means a lock-in study, where they actually pulled 3 nutrients out, they reduced. So it was intravenously put in to see what happens to bone and muscle. Does it increase or decrease? They found 3 things did that. If you took out sodium, you lost muscle and bone. Not calcium, sodium. If you took out phosphorus, which is in animal foods, in protein, you lost basically because they were actually giving amino acids and phosphorus and all that in their constituent parts. That means they could remove things which in a natural food you wouldn't be able to do that. But they actually removed phosphorus, and again, the same thing happened. When they put the phosphorus back, it restored it. This is a clinical study. I probably need to do the same a video that I've talked about, but I haven't done it yet. And show that study. And then the other thing that they actually did was basically protein. They lowered the protein, and the same thing happened because of the lack of leucine primarily. And I've shown that even leucine will actually, even in a faster state, I've done a video on leucine. Spencer, go and take a look at it if you haven't seen it, will actually increase. Now, a lot of that other stuff was actually epidemiological. It was looking at nutritional factors, but it wasn't actually looking at, and most of the actual Inuit and stuff like that population that were looking, they weren't on their ancestral diet. They were eating carbohydrates and other things. So, no, they're not. These are, as I said, epidemiology is problematic. And these assumptions that the nutritional factors of high protein, high nitrogen, high phosphorus, that was just from associational. It's like, for instance, people that are on a vegan diet or a standard diet, and they say, oh, there's association. Yeah, who gives a shit? It's just associational. I've seen those studies. They're associational. They're bullshit. It's basically, you have to look at clinical lock-in studies where they've actually put people and intravenously given things and taken things out. You can take out calcium, you can take out a number of other things, minerals, and you don't get the same effect. But you take out those three things they noticed, which were the critical ones: salt, phosphorus, and protein, and bone and muscle density went down. So that's basically a dose-dependent. It's basically mechanistic. That means if I take something out or put something in, there'll be a change in a dose-dependent way. Fulfills the Bradford Hill criteria perfectly. Those ones do not. They're associational in that regard. And these speculations that this was happening to these populations was mere speculation, nothing else. They did not have, basically, like, these people weren't put into and tested to see on bone density. What was their bone and muscle density? They didn't do that. So these are just basically extrapolations and associations of population studies. Population studies are epidemiology. It's nonsense, believe me. So it's just absolute nonsense. You've got to do the clinical stuff. You've got to test the hypothesis. These were just hypotheses back then. Then they got tested. And those tests showed that quite clearly it wasn't the case. The higher protein, the higher, also with one of a study that actually showed higher protein, greater intake of calcium. Lower protein, lower intake. Even if you're eating more calcium, the lower protein will end up absorbing less. So again, it's the protein that's actually modulating all that sort of stuff. So that's where the difference is, and it maybe even the taurine that's playing one of the critical roles there, and leucine in that regard. Leucine driving muscle and bone synthesis, while taurine is the amino transporter. That means pulling stuff more in and dragging other stuff with it. So it's probably a synergistic. We haven't teased out that relationship completely. We know it does it on a mechanistic single approach, but we haven't done it like what I call synergistics to see that as well, where you can alter it, where you can say, okay, we're going to take this part out completely to see what happens if we take this part out and not the other part. Stuff like that, I mean. I suspect if you take out the leucine, that'll be the most critical one. And a secondary role will be played by, and the reason why I say that is because that other study that I did on the leucine, which showed that in a fasted state, you just put leucine in, pure leucine, you'll drive muscle protein synthesis. Not as high as somebody eating protein together with leucine, but much higher, and you will not sustain any loss compared to somebody in a fasted state. So that also is a very critical thing, when you see that, because that's pure mechanism. You can do it over and over again. That's replicatable science. replicatable research. That's you can rely on. Population studies and all that you can't really rely on. They're not really good to elucidate exactly what's happening. Nope. More protein actually will pull in more calcium, because even animal foods have calcium. So nope, not at all. Depends on whether you've got enough of the other stuff, how much calcium you'll pull in. That was the other research. And I think Bart talked about it, but none of us have really, neither him or me have really made a video. So we need to make a video on it. Yeah, it would have, because most Irish people have piss poor, basically conversion. Most other people don't need it, but Irish people, I do recommend it to Irish people, because they can't get, look, even the animal foods have, when you eat animal foods like beef, as an example, yes, the fat has some retinol in it, but also there's a lot of also like there's carotenoids of it varies. Let me just explain it. It varies between muscle meats, the level of carotenoids in them, but it does vary. But they do have, and most people from an Irish background in particular, and Icelandic background, you guys can basically, when it comes to those, I've got a 32% reduction, but you guys have got something like a 90% reduction. It's just that's why basically when you eat a lot of carotenoids, you basically become your skin goes orange, like some of the vegans, have that same problem. So yes, it is a different thing. So for people with that sort of background, the west coast of Norway, Ireland, northern parts of, like Scotland and stuff like that, a lot of the coastal areas in particular, the levels of the ability to convert beta carotene is much lower. So to convert any carotenoid is much lower. So yes, those sort of people, I do recommend that they use that as an option. But other people, no, you don't need it. So it depends on your genetics, So I use a bit, but I don't use a lot. I use very little. So I use about a third of the dose in winter in that regard, just with my supplemental vitamin D that I'm bringing in higher doses to sort of balance slightly there. That's the only reason. So I'm not basically exhausting the enzymes. I'm not exhausting some of the other storage thresholds. That's the only reason. So, but yep. Yeah, they are expensive. That's why I only recommend them to people who have Irish background and stuff like that. I don't recommend them to the general public because they're not required, Boo. Yes. Merry, Merry, Merry Christmas to you as well. I'm trying to catch up. Cynolytics will be the main part of the arsenal against cancer. No, not necessarily. It's only part of it. There's a number of things in that regard. There are either enzymes as well. That'll be in the next one. It'll go comprehensively. And this is research that goes way back to the early part of the 20th century. Lost research, actually, unfortunately. So it will be adding to that, adding to the deuterium story as well. There'll be a couple of things there that'll be new, a couple of things that will be old but just rehashed with a few more details. So yes. Yeah, look, there's a lot of stuff like that, but it's not working because basically your cells work in a certain way and they've been designed to work that way for millions of years. So why would somebody with a reductionist approach targeting a specific pathway believe that they can actually fix something is beyond me. It's a synergy. You basically need to fix the diet, fix the lifestyle, fix a number of factors to basically fix the problem. Yeah, and it's not going to happen with these little targeted sort of things on reductionist sort of pathways, which basically can create more side effects than it's worth it. And what they usually do, you know, there's been drugs that have been targeted for osteoporosis or and made the condition worse, have been targeted for this and made the condition worse, sometimes even killed people because, again, reductionist thinking. So, no, a species-appropriate diet and lifestyle makes a massive difference. But with a few biohacks, in order to reverse the damage, because the diet will not only do it, you need to, to bring down the level of senescence, requires senolytics and other things as well. To exercise as well can help accelerate that. Fasting as well can help accelerate that. But you have to. It depends on where you are on the spectrum. Are you in a metastatic state or are you in the early stages? Fasting is fine in the early stages, and so are stem cell approaches. But in the latter stage can be a problem because, it can be fasting can be protective in a metastatic state, and also stem cells can be utilized by cancer cells in a metastatic state. So it's a bit of a problem there, So it depends where you are on that spectrum in terms of cancer, how you approach things. So, yes. So it's very important. I keep on making this issue and drumming it into people because it's so important. And it's like, with the taurine and blood pressure. I don't do this because I enjoy basically continually hitting my drum. No, it's because I don't want information to be misunderstood and misused and potentially causing harm rather than good. I'd rather, do no harm sort of approach. That's the only reason I take that approach. I know some people that have heard it over and over again may go, oh, fuck, Harry, but I do it for that specific reason because not everybody's heard that. Very important. Yes. You're having fun? Yes. If you're doing long, like multiple months, if people have got specific like cancer and other things, I get them to do multiple months every month. But I get them to do it over 3 days. So that's the difference in double the dose over 3 days rather than 5 days. At 500, I get them to do, far more. So they do 500, which is 2,500 milligrams. I get them to do 1,000 each for those 3 days. And in a fasted state, as long as they're not metastatic in that regard. So, yeah, there are different ways. And also with a lot of cream. Yes. Go crazy on the cream because the more cream you put, the more absorption you have. Now, I know Paul that took half the dose, he had a bit of like dizziness effect. So if you do absorb more of it, depending on which tissue, because it could be in the brain that it's actually killing off some old cells, knocking them off in that regard. We don't know why this happens. I've only had one case. That's Paul, a guy in Tasmania, that actually said, I felt a bit dizzy and I had to sit down. And then I was fine, an hour later or whatever. But I don't know whether anybody else has had that experience with Pfizer. It does suppress things like mTOR and a number of, like IGF-1, a number of things. It sort of puts you in a very deep catabolic state. Now, that may happen if you're not fat adapted and you put yourself in a very catabolic state, it may be an issue for some people. They may have this, because they're not fat adapted, they may have this sort of hypoglycemic effect. Maybe, I don't know. I'm speculating here that may be that Paul wasn't completely fat adapted. Maybe he cheats a bit more. I don't know. So that's a possibility. Just keep that in mind. So that's some of the feedback that I've got, and that's the speculation that I've sort of come up with it that he's probably not as fat adapted, and that may be an issue for some people if they go higher. So just keep that in mind with Physidin. And that's another reason why I want to do the new protocol and also explain some of the things that may be an issue for some people. Well, it's only been for one person, but I don't know whether other people. Please let me know if it has. A lot of this stuff is new to all of us, and we're still learning about some of the stuff. I'm going from the clinical studies, but you guys are having N of 1 experiences, and those N of 1 experiences are feeding back to me, and that's useful. It basically brings to my attention certain things and goes, okay, there are people, maybe there's a fat adaptation here, maybe there's some other issues. Maybe if you've got a relative, you put them on this sort of stuff, make sure you have them on a lower dose because they're on a kibble diet and may have, do you know what I mean? All these things. We've got to consider all these issues. So it's not a one fits all sort of scenario. Seems like those senolytics will be like nukes against damage and senescence and help focus on deuterium. We are leaving in exciting times that it might be laughing at this video in 100 years. Yeah, look, exactly. Look, potentially in 100 years, people may look back at that and say, "Oh, Harry got quite a few things right. He got a few things wrong, and the things that I didn't get it precise and all that." They may be laughing about them and say, "Oh, he could have done this, he could have done that. Why didn't he think of that, or whatever?" Who knows? Yes. The reality is, we can only go on the best science we've got, the best approaches, and I always say to people, listen to your bodies. Your bodies are so valuable because of your genetic differences and stuff like that. They will tell you. And then I don't mind. I love people feeding back to me and saying, Harry, I had these symptoms. What do you think? I don't mind that. Actually, I enjoy that because it gets me thinking and I go, I didn't think of that. What could it be? And then I get my mind starting to think of different possibilities. Like with Paul, maybe he's not as fat adapted. Maybe that's the issue. They're very putting somebody in a very catabolic sort of state that maybe, so that's where that came from. And it seems to have an effect on some of the glucose metabolism and stuff like that. And I go, maybe that's what's happening. He's not as fat adaptable as I thought. So there's a possibility. But I can't think out of the side if I don't have, because my N of 1s are my N of 1s, but other people's N's of 1s are additional experience and knowledge that basically can feed back to me, and my analytical brain can then pull it all apart and say, and maybe come up with some additional new knowledge, which can help you guys in the long run. So that interaction between us is helpful, not only for me, but also for you guys. Because my N of 1 just helps me, but other people's N's of 1s can help many people in the community. So please share. I think Taurine is an NMDA receptor antagonist, if I remember correctly, as well, which would be good for reducing neuroinflammation, exactly, increasing melatonin production, especially if you have autoimmunity. Very well said, Robert. Exactly. So that's for the future video to talk about all that. Remember, also taurine in relation to when we're talking about autoimmunity, even thyroid. Yes, it has a role in a lot of tissues. Let's put it that way. And yeah, when it comes to neuroinflammation, it does reduce neuroinflammation. That's one of the big things. It also reduces glycating factors inside the brain. Another, it is like a Swiss Army knife. I could read off pages and pages of the things that actually taurine does. It's incredible stuff, and it's in meat or a fish. So easy to get. Crazy, isn't it, Robert? Crazy. Yes. Not a problem, Robbie. He's probably gone by now. But anyway, Merry Christmas to you and Happy New Year, mate. Yes. Ah, yes. Nothing like the sheep. They love a bit of prodding and told what to do. Yeah. Look, exactly. Basically, HD. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, precisely. It's great stuff. Yeah, thanks for dropping in, mate. Oh, yeah, he's probably gone now, but I've did send him an email that I'm going to chat with him next week. So he's been supportive to the channel, so we're going to go through. He's got his genetics back, so we'll have a bit of a chat about those. He's got a few issues there, I've noticed, so yeah, he'll may have to make a few modifications to the way he's living to deal with those. It's probably cleared up a lot of stuff that, yeah, with a genetic test. And that's why I say sometimes if we've tried a lot of things and it don't work, sometimes you need to get the genetic test to make modifications that the standard carnivore diet will not, because, you know, you don't know where the genetics have come from in some regards, especially a lot of people living in North America, Australasia and all that. They really don't understand their ancestry. Somebody who's lived in the same spot, their grandparents, their great-grandparents and everybody, basically, what your genetics are. But somebody who's come from another part of the world, potentially the grandfather or father, in North America in particular, you've got all these people come from other parts of the world, all people mixed marriages of all sorts, genes coming from all different parts of the world interacting. You don't know what you're going to end up with. And as a consequence, it's very hard just because it's part of your ancestry. There may be other parts of your ancestry you were unaware of. So very important for certain parts of the world to look into these. Well, they're less important because, you're going to get certain things. I think there's value for everyone, but anyway, that's my opinion. I'll leave it at that. Yes, exactly. Yeah, anemic. Yep, definitely. If she's anemic, yeah, it makes sense. She's definitely probably got, and taurine and will help, definitely. Taurine and salt will definitely sort out a lot of things. Yeah, exactly. And those bacterial strains as well, they'll suppress as well, which is important because they do suppress H. pylori. It's, yeah, another great thing that those bacteria do. That's why I like to use them synergistically, because they work together. You've got the suppression, and then you've got the taurine and the salt actually improving the stomach function, while the other ones are suppressing and getting away because it's impeding the proper stomach function. When you've got H. pylori, you need H. pylori. You never can get rid of it. A lot of us have got H. pylori. I suspect I have as well. So, but when you suppress it and it's under control, it's like basically everybody's got certain yeasts in the body, But if you keep them under control, they're not a problem. If you don't, then they become a problem. You got rush, all sorts of yeast problems in your body. So it's like anything. There has to be. You need a healthy body to basically maintain that proper homeostasis and the way things work. Yeah, a lot of people that are basically, a lot of the younger people that are taking taurine, they're not taking it because they're getting plenty of meat and all that. They're probably getting enough. They're usually doing it to get more of the other side benefits, better sleep, and also amino transport, because it's an amino transporter. So they're trying to maximize the amount of protein they can get into their system. So they do it for other reasons. Everybody's got their reason, but they'll get other side benefits as well. So, so in that regard, yes. Yep. And yes, and getting good levels of, and that's where, like prostate and breast cancer, I always say to people, find out what your genetics are. Really important for those two, because you may have a higher requirement. Let's say you're Irish background and you've got poor retinol conversion. You've got a higher requirement for retinol from the diet, but you may not. And remember, the cofactor for the enzymes that control cell proliferation in prostate and breast tissue, where does that come? It's primarily vitamin D that actually regulates these enzymes and also regulates the matrix metalloproteinase 9 and 2 inside those tissues types. But basically, the key cofactor is vitamin D. As a secondary role is retinol. Now, if you can't convert enough, you may be deficient in retinol to actually allow that enzyme to work properly. But if you don't have conversion problems, then it's not an issue. So, as I said, genetics does play a role in those regards, how well a protocol will work or not. So keep that in mind as well, Devox. That's why I think those sort of genetic tests are important, especially if you've got like disease like that. Like I had cardiovascular disease. I need to find out, people got liver disease or whatever. If it's not your general carnivore issues, like I've got a bit of a weight problem, stuff like that. Yeah. But if it's really severe diseases that people have had, it's a good idea to get a genetic test to find out exactly how their body's working. Does it have a methylation problem? Does it have a homocysteine issue? Does it have any of these issues, that are creating a lot of inflammation? You need to know in order to mitigate those things with appropriate adjustments to your carnivore diet. So a standard carnivore diet will work for most people, but some adjustments may be required for others, especially from certain backgrounds. It's just the way it is. Yes. Okay, so yep, perfect. Yep. I did the calculation, dividing, working out the 240 pound spends, and it came out to 1.56 times more than a Samburu. And then when you divide that by the 63 point something like that, it's about 99%, which is exactly that additional. It was 100 and they were 63% of his. So he's basically eating exactly the same amount that the sand people are eating for their weight and their size within, a margin of 1%. So, yeah, exactly. So he's actually eating exactly at the the top level that a highly carnivorous tribal person like the Bushmen are eating. So no, he's not eating too much for his size and his weight and all that sort of stuff. No, so everybody's got their own ideas. We'll go with the 5.5 at 240 pounds, which is slightly over 100 kilos. What was it, 109, I think, or whatever. Yeah. So for that body size, fine. I got no problems with that. That's about around about just slightly less than 4 grams per kilo body weight, just slightly before, which is exactly what these guys, the sand people, were consuming. So no, he's fine. So anybody that thinks he's consuming too much, they just basically got rocks in their heads, talking shit, ignorance, basically. Yes, thanks for that, guys. That's useful information. It's always good to know because people are going to throw that at me or throw that at you guys, but now you know how to answer, saying, well, he's just consuming just as much for his body size, just as much as the Bushman of the Kalahari. So bugger off. You're just ignorant. So, yes. And if you want them to come and argue with me, send them to me. I'll argue them to the floor. They won't survive very long. They'll be running for their mummy, crying, oh, that evil Harry really basically fisted me. Yes, it'll be a verbal fisting, and they will be running to mummy. Anyway, what's Bo say? Well, I've heard that yes, the N Jabba the Hutt is okayed by the EU. Production distribution rollout in Australia outside. They're talking about next year. They're talking about January. They're talking about mid-January. Some people. I got no idea exactly when. As I said, with the current Omicron, nobody needs it, but people still need to do it, unfortunately, because of their job. And it's the safest. The other one is from South Australia. Remember, I did a video showing all the different ones that are actually in production at the moment. You can go and look at those and actually Google and see at what stage they are. There may be, like in South Australia, you never know. The South Australian one that's being produced in India for the Indian market and been approved in India, it may get approved locally by the South Australian government. So if you're living in South Australia, you may have access to it as a consequence. So that's the other thing, potentially. But yeah, you'd have to check with your local medical authorities to find out when those wankers will tell us when exactly it's going to happen. So yeah, we don't know currently, unfortunately. So yeah, it's just the way it is. I'm annoyed about it because people keep on asking me, and I go, I don't know. So don't get excited, Shell. We're talking about verbal stuff here. We're not talking about physical stuff here. Oh, God, my dear, get your head out of the gutter. Yes. Depends how cute that veganerized lady was. I do have my standards, Nothing like sulfur. Yeah, exactly. I'll be doing a lot of that. Robert's pulling us into line. Behave, boys and girls. Beef based. How are you, mate? Yes, I wish you Merry Christmas, Happy New Year as well, mate. Again, but I promise, concentrate on the wise words subliminally. Okay, so it's 1:30 in the morning for you. Get some sleep. You can always watch it again. I'm not too far away from pulling the plug at about 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock, I'm definitely pulling the plug. I got to, because I got to go somewhere. So I got no option. So, yes, it will happen. Yes, yeah, I know. I don't know. It seems like it's all over the place at the moment. So g'day, Jessica. He definitely isn't. He definitely isn't. He's a Philistine. He's a demonic cultist. Exactly. He loves the Vagoons. They love him as well. They got a soft spot for him. They like the slimy stuff. It's a bit like it reminds them of their sort of that shit that they create in blenders. Good to see you as well, Jessica. Yes. Yeah, I know. It's escalating every 3 months. Yes, we need to get the Pfizer profits up. What's wrong with you people? Those poor, destitute pharmaceutical companies that they'd be ruinous without people getting at least maybe 2 months every 2 months. They need to survive. They need to eat. It's more like basically they're more like those big, those piranhas that turn up every 3 months to literally take flesh away from you. Yes, exactly. Yes, yes, yeah. They can start from for all sorts of reasons and all that. Sometimes it's just sheer speculation, then it gets legs of its own, and then it's basically um, just people out there deliberately putting out stuff. It's not new. People have been doing that for years. If you go back, the witch hunts, people used to accuse the finger and say, that's a witch. Had no proof. They just basically didn't like the person or whatever, just pointed it. And then all the other sheep just went like mad. So this has been happening in human society for a very long time. The motivation of these people is a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists have talked about this. Do we know exactly, what motivates certain people to do that sort of stuff? Who knows, But unfortunately, when those people have get to me, some cases, I have to literally ban them off my site my channel, because they just come with virulence and vindictiveness and hatred, And so, because I disagree with one of their lunatics, well, if they're talking shit, what am I expected to do? Agree with nonsense? It's not going to happen. I know it's upset some people, but the reality is you got to be careful with what people say. A lot of people just make up shit. Unfortunately, yes. Yeah, that's the other problem. It's been, the least best well kept secret or whatever. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know about it. They don't know about it. It's not promoted. It's been that, and even the South Australian one, that South Australian company, they were told in no one they're doing a traditional vaccine as well in South Australia. They were told in no uncertain terms by the federal government that basically their product, even though it's an Australian produced product, it would not be given any preferential treatment, and it's traditionally made. It's actually even more traditional than the Novavax approach, so it's really traditional, a bit more like some of the others, and like the flu vaccine, very much like that, very traditional. And unfortunately, it's being produced in India, and whether they actually produce it at some stage and sell it in Australia, I have no idea. But basically, the Australian government has shown no support, have given them no finance or support whatsoever. So, yes, UAE Biff, good to see you, mate. Hope you're feeling better. I hope to also see you on the Zoom so we can have a bit of a chat. And yeah, so it's crazy, Devox. It's really, really at the moment, and even here in Australia, it's been kept. And many people have been saying they've been trying to offload all the other stuff before they allow this to come into the market. So they're giving preferential treatment to certain companies. It's annoying, let's put it that way. I'm not going to say there's a reason. I just say, it's usually that certain companies have more connections with politicians and more influence over them. So, yes. Thanks, mate. FRs. Afaris were attacked in the war by the Trigaians. Boy, did they wipe them out. Thus far, 50,000 of the Trigaian Defence Force been lost in a year. Bloody hell. That's quite horrific. we don't hear about it because the major powers aren't involved, so they don't give a shit. It's a traditional thing, if America, Britain, France, and all those sort of countries are not involved, or there's no strategic interest for them, it's like, what? It's non-issue nearly. And then you've got little Djibouti there. China turns up and builds a base there, and immediately, they're all over Djibouti. As I said, it's all geopolitics, never really about people. And it's unfortunate because the FR people, they leave everybody alone. They actually move between all these countries as nomads. They leave everybody alone. I mean, the last people that people should be killing, bloody hell, that's crazy stuff. Yes, some of the last of the nomads in that area that still drink camel milk, eat camel meat, low deuterium food, and have a traditional connection to the environment and all that. So, bloody hell. Oh, well. Yep, they do help with mitochondrial biogenesis. So does basically, stearic acid as a supplement, or eating it in meat. Causes reverse electron transport signaling through ROS signaling to the cytosol, telling it, I want more, in terms of mitochondrial biogenesis. Puts up a sign, I want more. Yes. In a healthy body, you will get more. It depends. Unless you're in that sort of, the Oliver Twist with a bowl. I want more. Yes. And you got that mean cell that says, no, I'm not giving you more. So I know it's the hat. It's the hat that's actually affecting me mentally today. That's where all the humour's coming from. I should wear it more often. Oh, so the old boy's going to rumble, is he? Rumble in the American jungle. As I said, if anybody can find me an app that I can upload to all these ones, I'd love it. 42-year-old ex-coworker just had to have lung transplant. COVID damn nearly killed him. Shit. Bloody hell. That's severe. Yeah. Probably end up with massive glassing like I had in my left lung, but in both lungs. So, yeah, if you can't breathe, obviously you may have to have a transplant. But if you can still breathe, it takes a long time. It can take 7 odd years plus, because I've been doing taurine now for quite a few years to actually bring down, and I've still got about, last check that I did, I had about 18 or odd % still left in terms of fibrotic tissue inside the lung. So, yeah, and that's the problem with the other variants. If you have a weak immune system that can't clear the stuff out, it increases it gets into the lungs, unlike the new one. It only goes in the bronchial tissue, gets in the lungs and increases its growth. It starts creating massive amounts of sort of fluid inside the lungs, damaging the lungs and creating this severe damage to the lungs. And as a consequence, opens you up to pneumonia and all sorts of things. But all that damaged lung is very hard to fix. But if you had a very good vitamin D status, good T lymphocytes and all that, you'd prevent it from that happening. You'd basically knock it on its head and clear it out before it could really become that bad. Unfortunately, most people are. I wouldn't be surprised if that person basically also had a darker skin, and probably has a poor vitamin D status and probably didn't eat much animal foods either in that regard. So, like most people, kibble eaters and have very poor immune systems. So, big reason for it. It's a reason why I put those videos out about T lymphocytes and stuff like that. And the reason why from my first video, I told you guys to get your vitamin D up. The first video, everybody can go all the way back and look at the first video. What was it? Get your vitamin D up. I knew taurine was fine. I did mention taurine, but it wasn't. I knew you were getting enough from the diet and you're supplementing all of yours anyway. So, but the vitamin D was the key thing to regulate the immune system and make it stronger. And you guys did that. So you're survivors because you've got good vitamin D status. But, the thing is, you could actually eat meat, and if you've got piss poor vitamin D status, the taurine isn't going to do anything. You can supplement taurine, you can eat meat. At the end of the day, the stem cell production of T lymphocytes in your bone marrow still requires vitamin D. So fundamentally, it's the vitamin D. The taurine and the other stuff actually work synergistically at that next level, which is the thymus, and getting the big T cell load out into the body. But fundamentally, my friend, with lung transplant, you hit it on everything. Overweight, clearly very unhealthy. Non-smoker through, smoking. Well, that's not really important, but yeah, and that's the problem with a lot of people. They've got all these sort of comorbidities and poor vitamin D status, and if you're overweight, vitamin D, you may need to take very big doses to get your levels up. So it can take far more, and just taking 1,000 IUs is going to do it. You may have to take like 100,000 or 50,000 IUs for a period of time to get your levels up. So, and, yeah. And people in that system, now they're in the system, how do you basically get the doctors to basically give them intravenous vitamin D, menoquinone 4, taurine and those sort of things? They're not going to do it. You want to avoid getting to that stage. Once you get into the system, they're just going to give you the standard of care. Standard of care is drugs. That's it. Drugs and some medical procedure. That's basically it. And that medical procedure is going to cause problems in the long run because it's got side effects. All of them have, So I didn't go for these medical, 1 year after I had my bypass surgery, and then I looked at all that and I realized, no, because I avoided all that sort of stuff by changing the direction and clearing out my blood vessels. Yes, it took me a decade, but most people think that it's going to take 1 year on a carnivore diet. You've got to be joking. You've done damage over decades. You think you can turn your body around in 1 year, and the older you are takes longer. It took me a decade at my mid-50s. Somebody who's in their 70s or 80s or whatever, that have got a lot of damage, it could potentially take them 15 years to turn their whole body around. Doesn't happen immediately, guys. You've got to be patient. That's why everybody goes for the magic pill. They go for the magic pill because they think that's the easy way. Yes, it takes time to build up your vitamin D levels. As Lukey found out, he had to work hard on getting out in the sun and getting his vitamin D levels up. He had to do a number of things to change his diet, get more cholesterol in so he could convert more of that stuff into, because cholesterol is the precursor of vitamin D. So he had to get more cholesterol in his diet in order to be able to synthesize more when he was out in the sun. So being out in the sun isn't going to help you if you don't basically have enough, cholesterol in your diet. So all these things are important. And if your body's dealing with like a damaged liver, you've got cirrhosis and stuff like that from, all the other things, forget it about synthesizing. There are a lot of things. That's why I say you've got to heal your body, and it takes time to sort out all these things. Once people get to this sort of level of damage, it's really hard to reverse things like that. It's the main thing is to avoid getting to that level, and it takes longer, and you've got to be patient. It's the reality. Anybody telling you otherwise is just they're lying to you. They're just bullshitting that to you. They're giving you false hope. What I do is give you long-term hope, so that if you stick to this, you make the changes, you're persistent, you will see the results in the long run, and you'll be happier for it, and so will your family. Yep. I love oysters as well. I love the stuff. And I did get some smoked bacon as well yesterday, because we went to the farmer's market down here, me and Hello Kitty. I got some grass-fed sort of mince as well, which was very fatty mince, because normally you don't get it. This was really fatty. I like that. And a couple of other things. So, yeah, some sausages, some really nice artesian type sausages, traditional. So they were nice. I'm going to have them after Christmas. Going to enjoy them. Oops. Yeah, exactly. I know. I understand. Look, that's happened everywhere. It's problem is people are just basically so unhealthy. It's unfortunate, and by the time they get sick, it's really hard to change the direction. I don't say it's too late, but especially if they get in the medical system, it's really hard to access them to help them anyway. So, yep, yep. It definitely would be. Definitely would be. What do you think about detox protocols? Waste of time. Relaxation, work. For your body detoxes your body. Basically, your liver and your kidneys do most of the detox, and your lungs do a bit of it as well, getting rid of carbon dioxide out of your system. So CO2. So yeah, your body does most of that sort of stuff in that regard. Bile excretes excess minerals, excess a lot of things. To methylate away xenoestrogens and stuff like that. Choline, fantastic. If you've got too much xenoestrogen from plastics and all that, you take choline as supplementation, additional stuff to methylate that stuff away. If you've got excess homocysteine, the quickest way to methylate it away is choline to do the job. Detox, to support detox pathways. Sulfur amino acids like taurine. So there are ways, but all the other stuff as well, stress, reducing stress, relaxing, going walks in the wilderness, stuff like that. They all help as well. We're not just food, we're also an interaction with our environment. Very much so. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. At the early stages, if you say that, yes, at the early stages, we still hadn't sequenced, we still hadn't imaged all the stuff. Now we've actually imaged them, sequenced them, produced, basically taken a portion of it and actually converted it into, a vaccine type thing, like the spikes in different preparations. So yeah, I mean, people still saying that sort of stuff now is just, I mean, you need your head examined, or you're just basically misinforming deliberately, for whatever reasons. I don't know. There are always people that are going to go, which, they did it back then. You think they don't exist today, these people? There are plenty of psychopaths and all sorts of people that just get enjoyment of tormenting other people, of, it's just the way it is, unfortunately. G'day, Richard. Didn't see you there. Free Party suggested goals. Protect our rights while adjusting the music taste of my neighbours. That Bart bloke doesn't live close to you, does he, Richard? Musical and all that. Is he playing his guitar? Yes. We are at 2:00 and I'm about to Yeah, I know that I've missed probably a lot of you lovely people and talking more and that sort of stuff. I would love to do the rest. If I've missed anyone and a lot of their stuff that they, yep, exactly, very high amongst children with autism, glyphosate. It's very highly associated. We haven't got any causal stuff, obviously. But I think all these things, the modern, it's the old Pottinger's cats. It's a lot of things together, nutrient deficiencies, gut microbiome issues. These kids are growing in numbers as a percentage of the population, as the percentage of kids that are being born because of a lot of these things. Their parents are much sicker than what they were in the past. So it's all this sort of stuff, unfortunately. I wanted to get there, Angela. Yes, happy Christmas to you as well, Mary, and Angela as well. Did I miss anybody? I'm going to go through until I find. Yep, Mousy, Richard. Yes, you had to put that up there. Oops. And my mate from the United Arab Emirates. Good to see you. Hope to see you on the Zoom sessions. Recovering, surely I hope that I can be on the Zoom. Yep. Good to hear you're recovering. Take care and God bless you. And in it, and this one. Yep. Lungs, overweight. Yep. All those sort of things. Yeah. It's unfortunate, but that's the reality, what we actually end up seeing, Oh, God. I'm cuter than her. What is wrong with you, Richard? I've even got the pom-pom going and everything. What's wrong with you, mate? Yep. Yeah. Hope he makes it. That's the guy that's having the transplant, I believe. Yeah. Good luck to him. Hope God's looking over him, Yeah, I know it's really awful. Yep. Yeah. Merry Christmas to you and your family as well. Sure. Thank you. Appreciate it. Why hasn't Sean Baker disclosed his preliminary findings on the carnivore study he has been getting funding for and the CSE scores Blinkers was telling me about? I don't know. I've got no idea. Blinkers hasn't said anything. Blinkers will usually turn up on the occasionally pop in. When he escapes Sky's little dungeon, he gets away, or he's not kept under lock and key. Occasionally he gets out, he finds a way out, old Blinkers. And I don't know whether he's being mischievous or not. I've got no idea, mate, in that regard. I know that Sean has shown his score in the past. And, the other thing you have to realise is that if some people have got a certain level of CAC score, just because you're on a carnivore diet doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fix it. You may have specific genetics that may predispose you to certain problems, and you may need more MK4 because in your ancestry, that's what they consumed more. So there can be other confounding variables as well. Okay. Yeah. That can happen. Actually, that can happen, especially if you've got, and it can happen, I'll tell you where it happens. It happens in cases where people have got a lot of what is called calcification that is soft calcification. And what happens is when you actually get on a carnivore diet, initially your CAC score goes up, not down, because it's stabilized by calcium. You get more calcium coming in because of the protein, and it gets stabilized. So that soft tissue that was there, soft tissue is not calcified enough. You get additional calcification. So it's not actually that you may actually be reducing the amount of, but actually, and we've seen people that do a carnivore diet for long enough. Remember, these are short studies. If you do long enough periods of time, then you will reverse. It'll initially go up and then it will come down, because initial calcification happens is a protective mechanism. That's what calcification is. It's a protective mechanism to prevent soft plaque from bursting, from erupting and killing you. So it's a good thing that it happens, that it goes up. But then eventually it starts coming down. The quickest way to bring it down is to go very high on menoquinone 4. Remember, these people have gone from a kibble diet to carnivore diet. They've already got massive damage inside them. Do you think a carnivore diet's going to reverse it in just a couple of months? No. All it did was stabilize that soft calcification. That's what's happening. A lot of people are not understanding what happens. And I've talked about it in the past about soft calcification being the big unknown danger in a lot of people coming off a kibble diet and a carnivore diet and not getting enough calcium and menoquinone 4. And many people think that I'm bizarre about that. No, I'm not. I've talked about it before. It's really important to get those numbers up initially to stabilize all that soft plaque, and then reverse it with high doses. Bring yourself down from an inflammatory state. I don't even recommend people do high doses of menoquinone 4 until they've reduced their inflammation and stabilized their plaque. That's part of my future protocol, because that's what I did. So yeah, I don't think people really understand soft and hard plaque and the differences. Hard plaque takes many years to build. Soft plaque takes far less time, and you need to stabilize it. The whole reason why the body puts plaque, calcium in there is to stabilize that tissue. So these people may have not been consuming a lot of dairy, because they were eating a lot of kibble. They switched to a carnivore diet, started eating some dairy. They were taking in more calcium. It was stabilizing their plaque. Yes, the numbers go up on the score. But the question is the plaque stable or unstable? That's the important thing. So initially you need to stabilize it, and then the body can shrink it and remove it with high doses of menoquinone 4 and a carnivore diet that slowly reverses a lot of this sort of stuff. If you're healthy, you don't have this. Remember, Sean has 0 and many others. But to reverse it when you've actually created from a kibble diet takes time, and you need to stabilize. The body knows what it does. It will stabilize first. It will prioritize to prevent that. So when it gets the nutrients, the animal foods, it's getting all the cholesterol, it's getting all the building blocks, or all the proteins and all that. And initially, it creates more scaffolding to stabilize that. Then it can clear it out slowly as it's been stabilized. That's the difference. So very important for people to understand that sort of stuff. As long as it's stable, not a problem. When it becomes unstable, then it becomes a problem. And yeah, now we have to come to the 2030 minus Harry goodbye thing. Oh yeah, that's true. I'll pull the pin now. Thanks for reminding me, Michelle, because I was about to do that. You know me too well. Anyway, I will take my pom-pom and leave this live stream. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. And oops, that way. Be nice. Let me be naughty, you be nice. So anyway, take care, guys. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. And I will see some of you lovely people in the evening stream. And if I don't see that over the long weekend, because it's going to be a long Zoom session, and I'll be coming in and out. So it'll last until Monday for some people because of North America. They have it in a different time zone. So I'm going to drive it over. It's going to be probably 50 hours or whatever. It's just going to go and just run from midnight to night. So basically in 10 hours time from now, there'll be a Zoom session in 10 hours' time. In 4 hours from now, there'll be the Eurasian pre-Christmas one. And so 4 hours from now, that will be the other one, the other live stream. And in 10 hours from now, there'll be the Zoom thing that will happen. And that Zoom thing, obviously, it's going to be, going to go on for hours and hours. So I hope you enjoy it. And yes. And basically, thanks, mate. And basically, that is it. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. And there's a bloody mosquito that turns up at the right moment. Anyway, guys, see yous. Take care and enjoy your Christmas day with your families and friends. And if you need some company, there's always a Zoom session. Richard will be there. So, and a few others that, so you can have, let's say, an online Christmas with some people within this community. I'll drop in now and then and say hello as well. So, see yous there, whoever turns up. Anyway, take care. See yous.